session of the Alpine Peaks School District Board of Education will now come to order. The time is 4 o'clock. Our first item of discussion is a capital planning report, and we will turn the time over to Eric Woodhouse for that.
I guess I should have just kept standing.
You should have.
More business. I got my drink here, ready for this. I want this to be a discussion, especially when it comes to capital planning. And Diane was talking to me and she said, Eric, I'm sorry, we just need a lot of information. That's what the staff is here for. You guys are new. So there's an analogy, and this is what I want to start with. When I look at this picture, I think, where would I rather be, here or in somewhere like that? And I'm not going to tell you what my answer is, but I will tell you that I am a fisherman. Any of you fish at all? Okay, so when I was a teacher, I used to guide along the Provo River for fly fishing. And if you bait fish, that's one type of fishing, and I think that that's an excellent type of fishing. I still fish that way, but when you fly fish, it's more of an art. And there are so many things that you have to take into consideration. So when I would guide, and it was someone's first time, they had a really hard time learning how to cast. They didn't know how to tie their fly. If we were dry flying versus wet fly, it's a lot different for both of those. It was really hard to help them navigate, but by the time the end of the day came around, they were able to hold their own. That's what I'm hoping to do for you. I could just give you a whole capital planning presentation and say these are all my suggestions, but if I'm not teaching you and pulling back the curtain on how we do and make decisions when it comes to capital planning, then you're really not able to study these things out on your own and really come up with some recommendations for further study for my team. So that's my hope, that by the time we're done with this conversation, you guys know enough to be able to study on your own and say, well, Eric, what about this? I've researched this. Or what about these geographical locations? Or can we look at these secondary boundaries and really try to have true feeder systems? I like those kind of questions. That's what we're looking for. Okay, so some of you are already excellent fly fishermen when it comes to capital planning, and some of you are just beginning. That's fine. So when we look at Capital Planning 101, and my capital planning team is probably the largest committee that there is. I mean, Joel, Jason, is that? I think I have the most. Almost every member of DLT's on it, and I have Frank Pulley on it, and Derek's on it. About every lens that I could ask for is in that meeting. Why? Because I don't want to feel like I'm making those decisions alone. It takes a lot of individuals, because when we're talking about expensive things like capital planning and building a school or closing a school, those are all things where I want to make sure that I have multiple lenses on to make sure that we're making an informed decision. So, balancing the cost of student education requires careful consideration of four major things: property, funding, why Jason sits on that team, enrollment, and building capacity. This is one of the main things that we're going to address today, is that enrollment piece, because that also drives building capacity as well. If we have some of our buildings and they're way underutilized, then there's something we need to do about that. If we have some of our buildings and they're way overutilized, then we need to do something about that, right? So how do we make those kind of decisions? What do we discover? So two things we wrestle with as a district and as a committee is areas of growing enrollment and areas of declining enrollment. It's interesting. Some of these smaller districts might only have one problem, and that might be declining. One of them might have growing. One of them might be stabilized. But you know, the reality is there aren't too many districts in the nation that can say, well, we're just stabilized. Because there are some trends that are going along nationally that I think we need to talk about, because it's happening everywhere, and we need to have a good plan in order to address it. So I'll talk about that. But these are the things that we've learned over the years. One, build with flexible classrooms. It's important to be able to flex, not just in a brick and mortar site, but can you put in satellites or portables? So sometimes you might have a bubble come through, and Jason, you kind of know about this in some of those buildings as a building administrator. Sometimes that bubble will come through in first, second, third grade, and then all of a sudden they exit and your enrollment starts to decline. Well, we're not going to add on to a school when it's a permanent solution for a temporary problem. Does that make sense? So when it's a temporary problem, are there things that we can do to adjust instead of spending so much money on brick and mortar? Keeping the geographical boundaries large enough to prevent declining enrollment. So one of the things that we're seeing, and back in the 80s, we built very heavily, 70s, 80s, in the Provo-Orem area. It expanded really quickly. Is there any other area in the district where you're seeing that happen right now? Yeah, it's happening in quite a few areas, right? But as those communities build out, we're noticing some trends. But if you widen or you lengthen out the diameter of that geographical and catchment area, what we are noticing in some of those areas that are declining is that enrollment stabilizes a little bit better. So what's that sweet spot between, we don't want to go too large for it not to feel like a community center anymore, but we also don't want to go too small where all of a sudden we've got that declining enrollment and we're not getting the money's worth out of our building. Reduce the need to close schools in the future. I've been through quite a few of these boundary adjustments, and I've been on the district leadership team, or we called it, what did we call it back then? Cabinet. Ever since we started our first closure, and that was Hillcrest. So I was on it at that time too. It's an emotional decision. The amount of energy and thought that goes into a school closure, that same amount of energy and consideration ought to be on the same end with a school build too. It costs a lot of money, and also you don't want to build something that you end up needing to close in the future because of that emotional decision. So we try to make decisions that are going to last 30, 40, 50 years down the road, and that school is still a continual pillar in that community without having to close it too, okay? So, reduce the need to build more than you need. See, those are all the things that we consider. I wish I had a crystal ball, because if I had a crystal ball, I'd be able to tell you exactly where all the enrollment's coming, exactly where all the growth is coming, but I don't have a crystal ball. But what I do have is the art of a near science, and that is the enrollment projections. Jason, Derek, how many other districts do enrollment projections? Do you know? Is that something that just...
I don't know the exact number, but I don't think they're, not to the depth that we do on those.
That's, you know, they might do it casually, but ours is an art, right? And we've almost got it to a science. If you look across our projection books and you look at the difference between our projection and the actual enrollment, we are very close. I think that that is something that your district is going to want to continue, because when we use those projections, it allows us to make better informed decisions when it comes to future buildings and growth. And so as we look at the numbers, that's what we're going to be talking about today, are some of the projections and how we leverage those. But we've also noticed that some of the contingencies and these 4 trends are what's happening across the nation. I talked to a guy, I read an article in a magazine about the school closures in San Francisco, and so a guy out of Stanford was doing a study on how to mitigate some of those factors for Title I students when their schools close. A lot of those Title I schools across the nation are closing because they're high density housing, and they're not able to sustain the enrollment, and so they try to mitigate those. But he was seeing these 4 trends as well in that area, and that is, with the rising house prices, people can't afford it with younger families to buy some of these houses in the area. Mortgage rates are increasing, so even if they could afford it, sometimes the mortgage rate is just they're not able to put enough down on a house. And because of the inflation of cost of groceries and everything, now all of a sudden we're seeing a lower birth rate across the nation. Now, I don't know if the lower birth rate is because of these 3 things, but it is factual that the birth rates are going down across the nation. Because of this, we are not seeing the regeneration in the neighborhoods that we thought that we would see. I remember when we decided to move to close Hillcrest. One of the things that that neighborhood continually said was, don't. This neighborhood is going to regenerate. It has not regenerated. And as you move from the south to the central, all the way to even to the west, some of those schools are now starting to decline. River Rock Elementary was built, 10 years ago, I think?
This year, yeah, it was the 10-year anniversary.
Yep. So, if you look at that history, it's already started to decline, right? And why is that? Because as neighborhoods build out, and depending on the kind of homes that are in that area, once they move out of that neighborhood, or let's say all of their kids grow up and move, for me, if my kids, once I'm an empty nester, I'm not going to sell my house because I can't afford to move anywhere else. So why? I'm going to stay there probably till I pass away. Well, I'm preventing a new family from moving in, but even if I did move, some of them wouldn't be able to afford my home anyway. So because of those factors, we're just not seeing the kind of the regeneration that we'd like to see. So because of that, we do boundary studies. And when we do boundary studies, we consider 3 things, okay? So when we do a boundary study, we can either build, which is actually one of the easier things to do. Everybody's excited to go to a new school, right? So when we build a new school, we say, oh, don't worry, we're gonna reboundary you and you're gonna go to a brand new school. Yay, that's awesome, that's great, right? That's one of the easier things to do, but it's expensive. But sometimes that is the appropriate response. If you look at areas out west and even some of the areas centrally, when we build a school, sometimes we want that community to feel it first. If they don't feel it, they're not as apt to support a bond, right? So unless there's kind of an uproar there, they'll be like, why do we need a bond, right? All of our schools are, you know, well below capacity. So sometimes you want them to feel that pinch in order to understand that we really do need to build in this area. We don't really have another solution. Or you close. Now that's the hardest emotionally to do, but it can be educationally and fiscally responsible. There are some areas where if you've got two schools and they are so close together and they're hovering around the 200-300 range, what's hard, and I think those of you that have been in education, we try, and I apologize for using this big word, but collective efficacy, which means when you have a group of teachers together, they're able to collaborate. When they've got common formative assessments, then suddenly they're able to improve each other. And that PD that they get from belonging to a team is some of the best professional development that you can give. If you do not have a team to collaborate with, it changes the dynamic and it impacts the students educationally. So when we talk about, well, what's the sweet spot for a school? What are we looking for? Well, we're trying to make sure that we are at such an enrollment where those teachers have that ability to collaborate, and it's expensive. If you have a school and it's underutilized and it's only half filled, you've got, for an elementary school, that cost is about $1.2 million a year. Is that about right, Jason? Operationally? So you look at that expense and you say, well, would we rather have 3 of those or maybe just 1, right? So those are things to take into consideration. Sometimes it's appropriate to close. More than normally, we try to rely on adjusting boundaries. It's fiscally responsible, allows us to maximize utilization of existing resources in an efficient manner. So before we usually go to either building or closing, this is one of the first things that we look at. Can we do it through a simple boundary adjustment? And people don't like that either. And it's okay that they don't like it. It shows that we're doing something right. If there wasn't an emotional response, if I tell you that you're moving from Legacy to Shelley Elementary and they're like, yes, that's kind of a problem, right?
Yeah.
Because they didn't form an attachment there at the school. We want them to form an attachment and we want it to be difficult when we make an adjustment, but we want to make that transition as easy as possible for them too. The one thing I've noticed, remember when we went to that open house for the current boundary study and there were some parents there from Jordan Willows and they were concerned about moving to Snow Springs. One of the big ahas for me is everybody in that room, whether they were from Lehigh, River Rock, North Point, Snow Springs, nobody wanted to leave their school, which tells me every one of those schools is doing a good thing. And no matter which school you're going to, you are going to get a good education. And I feel very confident in that. Every one of our schools are exceptional schools. Okay, so we've talked about this at length. Criteria to consider. So when we go through a boundary adjustment, Derek's really good at going through these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. Now, sometimes these priorities are conflicting with each other. And so when we do a boundary study, we are looking at the impact on educational programs and outcomes. But we also want to pay attention to school capacity utilization over time and some of the enrollment trends, but also the proximity to schools. Well, these two might be in conflict with each other. So when we consider a boundary change, we try to hit as many of these variables as possible. Hey, Steve. Hey, are you a fisherman?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, then my first slide wouldn't have. But, but you can go back and watch it.
All right.
I'm glad you're here.
Thanks.
Okay, so we look at these 5 things, but sometimes you're not able to hit all 5. And sometimes when you hit 3 out of the 5, I still think that that's pretty good. But you're going to get a contingency of people in the audience that are still upset. I wish that we could make everybody happy when you do a boundary change, but it's just not possible. So we try to be principle-based when we look at these decisions. And I talked about that on Tuesday night when we made that vote, is that when you're doing these hard things, it's emotional. So the more the emotion or potential for emotion, the better you better stay at a process. So we really hunker down to our process and make sure that we follow this. And in every one of our committee meetings, these are the things that we're considering. And because when somebody stands up and says, what's going to do this? Yeah, I can understand that, and I agree with you. So it's not a right versus a wrong, it's a right versus a right. But one decision might be more right than another. Does that make sense? And I think that's what makes these boundary studies a wrestle. And I think it's good that it's a wrestle. Okay, I'm going to pause and catch my breath because I've been talking really fast. There is a difference between average school capacity and actual classroom capacity. Now this is a nuance that I'm going to explain slowly because I want to make sure that you understand this. So I get this question a lot. Frank and his physical facilities team, when they build a school, they build it with a certain number of regular education classrooms. Okay, so there is the difference between capacity. What do they call it, Frank? Not capacity, but
Well, there's code capacity, like what's allowed for building code capacity in the school, which is much higher than what
Right.
you see. And then there's, how many kids actually can be in a classroom
Yeah.
with furniture,
okay, so
supplies.
let's take this school. This is an actual school in our district. Okay, so it has 29 classrooms. Now, as a rule, as a district, we staff it at different amounts in each grade level. So kindergarten, we try to staff those at 23 in each class. First grade is 26, second 26, third 29, fourth 30, fifth 31, sixth 31. Now, these are like 31.2 or something like that, right, Jason? So they're a little bit more, but I cut off the 10th on there. So as you look at where we try to staff these at, if you take the average class size of all of these enrollment numbers, 26, you multiply that by 29, you could say that the building capacity should be 754. That's what that school should hold. But what do you notice here about this actual elementary school? Anything stand out to you?
It's only half capacity.
Yeah. Did you notice that, well, there's only 14 classes needed there?
And they have 29. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But do you notice sometimes, I mean, some of these evenly, if you look at this kindergarten and you split it by 2, are we at the 23 average?
No.
Close-ish.
Close.
Within a few.
You might take that, right?
But
I actually had an
class size,
exercise created
it's
for you
allowed.
guys where I had this, and then I gave you the number of FTEs that Jason's would have given you, and then you try to work that out. And what's difficult is you're like, okay, now all of a sudden I'm going to need split classes. And split classes are never popular. But if you always give an extra FTE, then suddenly you have overstaffed a school, and as a board, you have to balance a budget. And not every classroom can be at, like if you've got kindergarten classrooms and they're each at 13, 14, you've got a problem, right? But if those get to be too large, where you're in the 27, 28 range, that's another kind of problem. So that is a problem that we wrestle with, but that's why we have additional FTEs that we give to supervisors to really wrestle with this with each specific elementary school, and they make some adjustments there to try to get rid of split classes to make sure that we're protecting, especially in these lower grade levels, those enrollment numbers there too. Okay, so that's just some history of school capacity versus actual classroom capacity. And just a note, just because it says the number of classrooms should hold 754, sometimes the number of classrooms available is not the same as 29. I mean, it's 29, but I mean, you will need more for less students, because if that classroom average ratio is lower, then all of a sudden you'll need more teachers in there, and you're not quite at that capacity of 23, or 26 is the average. And so in one school it said their average, like, well, what does that mean? On the spreadsheet it says our average is like 500 and something, but actually their average was 380 because of the enrollment numbers they had in their specific grade levels. So, okay, notice the plane, because this is a 30,000-foot landscape presentation, but we're going to start getting into your numbers. So you have 36 schools. 24 of those are elementary, 6 are middle school or junior high, 6 are high schools. And you say, Eric, we only have 4. Polaris and Summit. Okay, those are our other 2 high schools. And then you have 2 specialty schools. Anybody know our specialty schools? Yep, you got it. Okay, oh, 35 to 45, is that right, Jason? Yep. Okay, we verified it. So, what are your assets? You've got this district office building, which is a great asset. You also have the ALC, which is the Alpine Learning Center. It's 2,100 square feet. You have a transportation department. If you haven't had a chance to go out and look at it, I recommend that you do. It's fantastic. And you also have the ATEC building, which is 23,000 square feet. You also have property at your disposal. So we've got the Powell property, which is 14 acres, Beckstead, which is 35 acres. You've also got Cold Springs, which is 10 acres.
And those are all in Lehigh, right?
Uh-huh.
West Lehigh.
Yep.
Okay.
Beckstead, would you say that's Wesley? That's more.
At Northwest,
It's
not
north.
right off of 3600
Right,
West
yeah.
and 1500 North.
Yeah.
Powell is right off of Pioneer
But
Crossing
still
Center
west
Street,
because it's
Yeah.
which
west
is
of the
south right
freeway.
there on the corner.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Dan Peterson. That school has been in operation for a long time, but definitely an asset for your district. Needs. We need a physical facilities compound. We also need a warehouse. So we'll be talking, on January 8th about what some possibilities are for there. So when operations takes that over, we've got some ideas for you. Okay, now, I thought about just going over this, but I also think it's just good for you to reflect and take a look at these numbers. These are new projections this year. What are some things that you notice here about these 7 schools in the North Lehigh Highland area? Anything stand out to you?
They're all declining.
They're all declining. Anything else stand out?
Those numbers look amazing.
Tell me why.
Because I'm from West Lehigh and our numbers are way higher.
Yep.
I will say though, all of these schools 10 years ago were right where West Lehigh is. Because when my kids were at Cedar Ridge, we had 1,150 students.
Yep. That's
So
right.
it's just crazy how that happens over time to me.
Yep. And Cedar Ridge was at 1,100, is that what she said?
Mhm.
And how long ago was that?
10 years ago. Well, 15.
Mm-hmm. So, when you look at this, you can say, well, some of these, I mean, I remember when Eagle Crest was high too. All of these, Traverse Mountain, Eileen was principal there, that was high when that
It was
first
really high.
started. I mean, really high. You look at it now, by 2030, it's at 714. Any increases that you notice of that surprise you at all? Nope, they're all declining. Okay, there's one where you will see an increase. Where you're
But
like,
I also
didn't see
noticed
coming."
that there's 800 up to, well, I'm looking at 30, so
Mhm.
just the numbers are not even.
Mhm. Do you notice the difference between 2025 and 2030? Drops a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I want to pay attention to is sometimes the right decision at the wrong time is still the wrong decision. And it's difficult to know what that timing is. And sometimes the right decision, if you just wait 1 or 2 years while that enrollment declines, then if you're considering a consolidation, it makes a lot more sense when you're fitting into that school. And the reason why I showed that slide before when we were talking about the difference between actual capacity versus classroom, what happens when we end up consolidating a school into another school is we don't just look at average enrollment. What we will do is we will draw a circle around the proposed boundary. It's a geocircle, and it will code every one of those students that live in that boundary. It will also give us the grade level of those students. We can take those grade level number of students, plug those grade level students in with the projections or the move up numbers of the school you're considering consolidating into, and then we actually go through and do the work of what would we staff this at, and how many classrooms would we need feasibly in order to fit them in. And sometimes if you look at the average, you're like, oh yes, we could totally do it. But when you get into the fine details, you're like, we would need an extra 3 classrooms. And people were shocked by that. But I think if you're gonna consider consolidating, we need to do that level of work to make sure that we're sure. Because the last thing you wanna do is upset a community. You consolidate and you're trying to get into a brick and mortar where it's only half used and suddenly we gotta put 3 trailers on. That's not gonna be popular, right? So we want to make sure that we're making good decisions like that. Okay.
Eric, can I add something on that?
Yeah,
That
thanks.
one slide.
Yep.
I just looked up, because we have the history of all of the elementaries, but it's just interesting. So Freedom Elementary, even back just in 2017, which is not that long ago, was at 1,041 students. And Eagle Crest in 2018 was at 1,017 students. It's just amazing how fast those have.
Yeah,
Because
it
right
happens
now,
fast.
what is Freedom at 558?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, it's that crystal ball, right? I wish we had a crystal ball, and I'm not sure what it'll look like in 10 years. I'm hoping that it doesn't decrease that much. But in the future, it's probably going to be an ongoing struggle, right? How many of these boundary studies are we going to continue to do? And it might be like we do one big overall one, but you might be finding that in 8 to 10 years, you're going to need to do another one, because that's just how quickly it goes. Okay? All right, thanks for that comment, Jason. So, right now, as the averages, if you go from 7 of these schools down to 6, that would be your average, whether it's 2025 through 2030.
And there's 7 now?
Yep.
Sorry, I didn't add it.
Yep.
I didn't count them.
7 here, if you move from 7 to 6, this is what your average would be. If you move from 6 to 5, that's your average. 5 to 4, that's your average.
Well, on the last slide, if you go back, 4761 to 4079, that's a school. That's 700 kids.
Yep.
That's basically a school.
Yep, exactly, right? So the question that you have before you is, well, if we consolidate, then what's the right timing on it? And not only that, this is an average, But once our team starts getting on it, and you say, Eric, I think these are the 3 schools that we want to start looking at. Then we start looking at specific neighborhoods, and we start doing that geo circling, whatever that magic wand is.
Black magic.
Black magic.
Black magic.
I don't want to say black magic.
Okay.
That makes it sound.
Did I say that in
Eric?
a public meeting? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My question would be, when you do these, like, what made you decide to combine North Lehigh and Highland? Because I would have combined Highland with Alpine and Cedar Hills, not with Lehigh because they feed to different secondary schools.
Good point.
She's a plant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hold that thought.
Yeah. We're gonna get to that.
Okay.
Okay. So when you look at Alpine Highland, all right. So you've got 4 schools here. Anything you notice there?
They're all under-enrolled.
Yes.
All under enrolled. Good. All declining. Do you see any that are increasing?
No.
No. Okay, so you've got your averages there. This one, you know, with 4 schools, Jason, to your comment, you're not quite decreasing by a full school, but you are decreasing by, you know, close to 300.
Well, at those sizes of
At those
schools,
sizes,
it's about
almost.
half a school.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
that, for Ridgeline, does that include projections from the Inverness development?
Yeah. As this is the current boundary.
Okay, so, okay.
Yep.
Because that hasn't even started yet, right?
No.
Like it's, I
No,
mean, they're
that
moving
will
dirt
be-
around, but they haven't started buildings.
Derek, talk about the phases of that.
It's 1,900 homes. Yeah. So there's nothing built in Inverness in the
Right.
ridgeline boundary yet. But I'm trying to remember off the top of my head if it was in a couple of years they anticipate on the east side by going up towards Suncrest. I want to say Plat C, if I remember the plat.
Because it looks like
correctly.
they're getting ready to put roads in, it looks like.
Yeah,
They're moving dirt around
They
and
could start
doing
having
the
people
things.
moving in 2 to 3 years.
Steve, do you know anything more about that?
Just that they're planning on 1,900 units.
Yeah.
Do you know the
And they're
price
probably-
point on those?
I don't remember.
I don't, it's pretty high.
500,000 or something,
They
600,000.
have
Oh, I
a
bet it's
mixture of
higher
like
than
the state homes and then the smaller homes.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think
It's
there were.
mixed,
Yeah,
there's
there's
mixed,
mix.
yeah. Because I
Depending on
think
which
that's the
plat it
section
is,
that's in
but-
your
Yeah.
area, right,
Yeah.
Nikki?
Yeah. I can get you the plans if you
But
want.
on this one, Eric,
Derek has them, I believe. We've looked at them pretty close.
there's 2 schools on here that were on your last one too, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. Exactly. Yep. Okay. So here you consider those schools. You go from 4 to 3. That's your average. 3 to 2. That's your average. So depending on when you decided if you were wanting to consolidate any of those would depend on the feasibility of whether you could actually do the consolidation or not. Okay. Now Central and South Lehigh, taking a look at this. Okay, what do you notice about this area?
Some of both.
Any increasing one that surprises you?
Lehigh.
Yeah.
Elementary.
I was surprised by that too, right?
Yeah.
You've got Lehigh Elementary, where you're seeing some of the growth there.
That's most
because of the
affordable
building.
housing in Lehigh.
Yep.
I think
But
it's
what's
interesting
different
that
about
they're-
this slide than any other?
They're going up and then going down farther than like they'll be lower than they started by 2030, but they are going up in between.
Only by about 25.
Which specific areas do you notice that are growing the most in that are really making the difference between the decline and the growth?
River Rock and Snow Springs.
Yep. River Rock, Snow Springs. You notice Snow Springs. Anything stand out to you, the difference between 2025 and 2026? Why is there a difference
It's a
there?
big jump. Because we just rebounded.
the boundaries
ourselves.
steady.
The boundaries change.
Okay, good. Yes. Now, what about the difference between 2026 and 2027?
Well, Dry Creek because of Saratoga Springs students.
Anne Marie, you are good.
But
Yep.
will they
That's why.
come or
Okay,
not?
so
Yeah.
when you look at the
But-
difference here and
Not
here,
that many will be.
this one plays a big part of that, right? Because you got about 400 and some odd students that are coming off the board, potentially, depending on what we decide to do there.
So from 26 to 27, those numbers, do they anticipate students? They anticipate students going to the area they live in
Yes,
rather
those
than
numbers
staying at the
are
school, right?
every student.
Does that
goes.
affect anybody else or mostly just Dry Creek? Like, do we have anywhere that has out of area kids
Not
from
in that area.
Saratoga?
Not
Not
in
there?
that area.
Nope.
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 Not at elementary school.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, good
Because
question.
secondary schools obviously.
Okay. So, here is just a slide for your consideration, because I know it's like, well, what do we do? Do we build on Cold Springs? Do we not? Do we need to build a school? Is it in the right location? These are all good questions, and I think there's one that you really need to wrestle with. And it's one of those answers where I'm not sure that it's a right versus a wrong. It's a right versus a right. Is it right to build on Cold Springs? Sure. Is it right not to? Sure. But which of those variables are the most important to you as a board? And whatever you guys decide to do, we're totally going to support, and we can manage that. Frank and his team is real quick at building schools, but we're also really good at doing boundary adjustments too. So either one of those options are going to be good for us. So if you look at this, and you have currently 5 schools, which means, well, there's 6 schools here, okay? If you go to 5 schools, which means you close one and you don't build one, and you did a complete boundary study, then this is what your average would be. Now, keep in mind that this is an average, and it wouldn't perfectly work out that way, because when you draw the boundaries and you look at neighborhoods, you don't just take an average number of kids out of those neighborhoods. So it's not going to work out perfectly, but in theory, this is what your average would be. Now, if you were at 6 schools, which means you stay as is, so you leverage all of your schools, but you don't build, or you close one and you build one, then this would be your average across the board for that area. Or you have 7 schools, which means you build one and you don't close one, then that's what your average would be.
I know this doesn't affect the 5-year plan, but
Yeah.
we've had conversations about Lehigh Elementary. It's fine right now, but it's not going to be fine in 8 years.
Frank, do you want to speak to, when you say
Can
fine,
we-
Jean Marie, you're
Like,
talking
I'm
about
talking
like
about structurally okay for our students. Can
Yeah.
can I ask that question?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
You can ask
I
any
just,
question you want.
because I want a bigger picture than 5 years for some of this stuff.
Yeah.
I want a bigger picture.
So structurally, it's not gonna be any different today than it is gonna be in 8 years unless chose as a Board of Education to go in and structurally reinforce the building. But there's other schools within this geographical area of the district that fall into that same category, and it was just a means and methods of construction where they did not reinforce concrete and masonry during those time periods. It just wasn't part of the process. But I wouldn't say that it's unsafe for students to be there. If it was unsafe for students to be there, we would have closed it down and moved the student out already. Does it not meet seismic standards structurally that are current as part of today's code? Absolutely. But the same falls for Sagalily, Shelley Elementary, Alpine Elementary, and honestly, those are even below other schools that have greater seismic concerns. And those schools are those with taller walls. So American Fork High School, I'll use that as an example. Those have some of the greater concerns because the taller the wall, the more potential it has if there were an earthquake for those walls to potentially collapse. But there's been upgrades at Lehigh Elementary. It's got new mechanical systems in that was put in just a few years ago. So I mean, I would say it's a good building. It's old, but it's still a good building and serves the students well in that community. I mean, that's just my opinion in dealing with it.
Steve. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry, I was just waiting.
Jason
for
and then
John.
Steve.
No, I was just waiting.
Well,
for
and
John.
what is like the interior with that? Like, because I've heard of things that there being like
Just
puddles
waiting
or
for
other
John.
things like that, or are there like just deteriorating interior?
I've not heard of any deterioration. There are times when you will see, because there are plaster inside there, which is a cement-based product, and so you'll get cracks from time to time. But even sheetrock, in people's homes, you'll see cracks from expansion, contraction. It may settle a little bit. I mean, that's just a common piece as part of construction. But people see those and then panic, like when all the building's collapsing, but those are just normal. Those have been going on there for a long, long time. We go in and patch and paint and keep it up to date. But I wouldn't say that school is just as well kept as a brand new school. We don't treat Lehigh Elementary any different as far as maintenance and operation and caring for it as we do, a brand new school that we built. So.
Yes.
I have a question. So when we're talking about earthquake safety, we're usually talking about specific sections of the school which have the higher walls, right? So at Lehigh Elementary, just as an example, which sections of the school would need to be redone to then, which sections like don't meet code now? Like if we wanted to upgrade the school rather than demolish it and rebuild it, is that feasible? And if so, like say what sections of the school would you need to do?
So the majority of Lehigh High, there's a small, tiny little section on the northeast corner that was an addition, I think, built in the early 2000s. Sorry, I'm going off of memory here,
Yeah.
okay? That would meet more current seismic standards from a structural engineering standpoint. The rest of the building falls underneath the need to be seismically reinforced.
Okay.
I would, my professional opinion is I would exercise caution in investing a significant amount of money in a building that is that old. When you go in to have to say seismically reinforce, it's a very invasive process, very invasive, which means you're touching a lot of aspects of that building, which will then require you to have to bring the entire thing up to current code in all aspects of construction, not just the structural aspect of the building. And then you have to wrestle and ask the question, is a 1951 building worth investing that many millions of dollars into it versus what would it cost me just to build a new one? And our experiences have been being that invasive in a school, it doesn't make a lot of sense to do that versus just replacing it with a new build and start your life cycles fresh on all aspects of the building, not just the structural aspect.
At a future meeting, can you go over the buildings, like that are the older buildings, and I don't know. Does that make sense? Like go over what is needed. Like the ones on the list. I would be interested in that.
And I wonder if we can do something similar to what the South has done. Frank just went on a tour of all those buildings, not all of them, but some of those buildings, right? And you could go on a tour of some of the older buildings there, and Frank could kind of walk you through and kind of show you that. And maybe that'd be even better than a meeting, right?
Yeah, Frank.
Frank, I'm just sorry to volunteer your time.
No, it's fine. Sounds great.
He works for me, I can do that. Yeah. We'll talk after. Okay, so to the question asked, we have a boundary problem, right? Because when we divide it as a district, now you've got, this is Dry Creek's boundary. You can see how much of Dry Creek's current boundary is actually in Saratoga Springs versus Lehigh. It's about half and half, right? So what do we do in this situation? And you've got some that's way over here that's right by Dry Creek, and there's a lot of questions around, well, does that get annexed in? What happens there? Well, I don't have the answer to that. A lot of that is going to depend on the boards, on what you guys decide to do, and working together, and what will happen. I'm assuming that all of those students are going to go to the new district. I have to make that assumption until I'm told otherwise. So until you guys decide, that's the plan. So because of that, even still, if we look at the numbers of Dry Creek, right here. So you go from 1149, which is where they're currently at. 2026, we go to 1206. Now, we tried to hang on because we knew that this was coming, this boundary and this district separation was coming. So if we could hang on until 2027, the problem would have taken care of itself. I don't think it's going to take care of itself. We already added additional blacktop this last year to put another trailer on. We can't add any more. So our recommendation is to start a boundary study, right? To see what we can carve off that would naturally go over here to Springside anyway, because if you pull a certain portion of this off, then it just seems logical that they would go there for next year. But as far as what to do in the future, well, we're probably going to need to do a complete study here for the Saratoga area, and we're going to have to reboundary most of Springside and maybe pull that all the way down south further by the lake, and that's something that the West is going to have to contend with. So if that's the case. So if you look at Springside and Dry Creek, 2027, Springside's projected to be at 997, Dry Creek's projected to be 1249. The number of students that are actually in that Dry Creek boundary that would go to Springside is 450. So you look at the new enrollment, 1447. That's going to be way too much for Springside, right? So that's why, you know, as a staff, we're looking at that thinking, well, we've gotta do something. But we're not sure what that something is. We'd rather just go ahead and do a boundary study because that's something that we can control. I'm not sure what you guys as a board are going to decide about those students that live within that boundary, right? Are they going to be annexed in or not? I'm not sure about all of that. The quicker we can get some details on that, the quicker we can
But
act.
that's my area.
They wanna come to our.
What secondary schools are they boundaried to?
Willow Creek.
Willow Creek, Lehigh Junior, Loch Lomond's and Lehigh Junior's boundary,
Mm-hmm.
and Lehigh High.
Okay.
So is that a Lehigh City
First they said to take
annexing, or is that, can we as a school district, or
I-
working with the West?
That's what I don't know,
I don't think we should.
right?
involve
I've never had this problem before,
But-
so
I think that-
I'm not sure the legislators have either, so I'm not sure what the answer to that is. Legal, over there, you just thought you were gonna sit and watch.
Re-ask the question, cause I was doing something.
Oh,
Okay, as far as
I'll go back to the slide.
boundaries, is this going to be, as far as an annexation, is that something a board can decide, or is that something a
No,
city
that's
would
a
have to
city
decide?
decision.
That are
City.
combined with other neighborhoods.
Okay,
Does the city have any interest in that?
But the
I see it
the
as not.
district boundaries don't always follow city boundaries, they follow county boundaries. So you could count students that are in the county side of that.
Jason?
Well, I was gonna say, if you go back to the map, it's really gonna be, cause right now we have an understanding with Canyon School District. We have the part of Draper that's in Alpine, we have
That's
that,
what I
but there's
understood,
also a lot of Suncrest students that are in the Salt Lake County side that still come down, cause our buses can reach it,
Yeah.
they can't the other side.
Yep.
It's just memorandum of understanding. So in this case, where the West may not have any capacity there, it's really gonna be the boards talking to each other and saying, you know what, we'll keep these students if they want it, we'll have it there, and they may say, that's great. The other one that's in the PG, and for the south one, they may say, well, we're gonna boundary them to here, cause we have room where the West doesn't, so it may be different parts in that, is just understanding. It wouldn't, I don't think it would necessarily change, the district boundary, just like it doesn't up in Suncrest.
But you
And
just
the-
have an MOU.
Yeah, and understanding that they
That's the
come here.
easiest way for sure.
Yeah.
Because then we don't have to get the legal system involved of redoing.
Well, if
Does
you
the
did, and it was-
WPU follow them no matter what the boundary
Yes.
is?
Does what?
Does the WPU
WPU.
follow the student?
Yes.
where they
Yes.
go?
And there's some billing between on top of the WPU.
The property tax dollars also are
A
transferred.
portion of that, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I also think in SB 188, there was, a way that the superintendents are able to adjust those boundaries if
There's
that's
3
the
options
route.
of how to do it, yes.
So
Cause they could go to
Good.
both
There's-
also.
Good, Nikki.
there's a few different ways to do it.
For
Okay.
district boundaries or school boundaries?
For
The
students.
superintendent can adjust the boundaries if, like, the Saratoga kids in that school.
Boards can do it, superintendents, or they can put it to a vote.
Yeah.
Right. And the part there, but if district boundary were to say, this is a change of district boundary, it would change like your seats where you are.
Yes,
too,
and
on the
that is
board.
why,
And
So-
we've built in, there was like a 10% variability that was allowed when we created our seats. So some areas have smaller
Could do it.
variance and others have larger because of that.
But I guess in this case, it would make yours bigger, not smaller.
because this is
Right.
my school, and so I've talked to a lot of people, they brought in Julie King to give suggestions on what to do, and it sounded like lots of them were great doing the agreement with maybe in 2030 when there were gonna be realignments anyway with our seats, that maybe that would be a better solution for them just to do the agreement until 2030 when realignments were happening anyway, so.
Well, that's good information. So I think, you know, with this and taking all that into consideration, I think for us as a staff, we're pausing until we have that conversation, but as soon as we have that conversation, we're ready to do whatever we need to do. Because even if you decide, no, we're gonna keep them there at Dry Creek, then I've got another boundary problem that I've gotta tackle, right? And I'm gonna have to utilize more of Snow Springs too. So no matter what, I'm gonna have to do a boundary adjustment there. Okay, good. All right, notice that I have some schools here in asterisk. The reason why is because they fall into the same consideration here, right? These are 3 schools that we have to think about where the boundaries now, when they're drawn with the new districts, are in another district. So notice the averages there. You've got some Deerfield declining to 321 by 2030, Barrett at 344. some of your lower ones. The rest are in the 500s or so. So I know that there was some talk of, well, as a district, we want to try to get smaller class sizes. If you want smaller class sizes, then that decreases the maximum capacity you can have at your schools, right? Because if you decrease that number that you're going in every grade level, you're going to need more classrooms in order to do that. So, you know, some of these 500s for these buildings, that might be right where you want them to be. Or the 700s, maybe that's perfect. But by the time you start getting into the thousands and you reduce the class size, that probably won't work. So, for all of those areas, if you go from 5 and you close 2, then that would be your average. If you go to 6 and you're only closing 1, this would be your new average. If you go to 7 and there's no closure, that would be your average if you redrew boundaries. So, you know, if you're like, well, the 500s, that's okay with us, we'll go ahead and reboundary those and we'll just lower the class size and that'll be a perfect size. Depends on what you want to do as a district, okay? So here is the map of the challenge. So you'll notice that Deerfield in this boundary has got quite a bit of their boundary that's in Pleasant Grove. Even Cedar Ridge has got a little sliver of that that's also in Pleasant Grove. And then Barrett, as it dips down here, is also taking in some of those Pleasant Grove students. So when you look at the amount, Deerfield currently has 131 that are attending, or that are in Pleasant Grove boundaries. Cedar Ridge only has 2 current ones that are there. So if you look at what that new boundary enrollment would be, for the south, Manila would go up to 571, which is fine. But Deerfield drops to 309, and then Cedar Ridge drops to 615. What did you say was that, Amber?
Cedar Ridge, when
yeah.
my kids were there, we had, it was pushing 1,200
Yeah.
when my middle kids were there.
So it's about half of what it's at.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember because my third one, there were 7 kindergarten classes and it was half-day kindergarten. We didn't have enough classrooms, so he was in like a regular classroom because there wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay.
yeah.
So same thing with Barrett. Barrett, there are 73 students that are currently attending in that boundary that are in Pleasant Grove boundaries. They would go down to 409. So, you know, that's about a grade level worth of students there. And then going down to 366 in 2029. Okay, Derek.
Question.
Yes, Jason.
Would it be safe to say that if you want to reduce class sizes, having buildings that are under capacity makes that nearly impossible?
Having buildings that are under capacity, if you want to reduce class sizes?
No, it's the
Makes it
opposite.
more possible.
But what I mean is you have schools that are, you're spending, you have a principal, a custodian, all these schools.
Makes
duplicated.
it not feasible.
Yes.
I guess the better way
Yeah,
to say
so
it.
physically,
yes.
it makes it
harder.
possible.
Yes.
Because then you can
Feasibility-wise.
drop sizes, add a classroom because you've dropped sizes.
Yep.
But financially,
Yep.
an understaffed building with 1 principal, 1 librarian, 1 custodian, 1 lunch manager,
Yeah, it makes it unfeasible.
it's an enemy to if your desired goal is smaller class sizes. That's gonna be
I
all.
think it would just
Under
be a
enrolled
Very good
balance
nuanced
of our
catch. That
financial
is exactly right. So that's the balance that you need to have, right? Do you want lower class sizes? Yes. But you also don't want a school that's at half capacity because the amount of operating costs overhead is significant every year. So 1.5, right? So Jason's like, well, if we reduce the class sizes, then really what you've done is you're still at the same capacity, but you've just increased the number of classrooms. So it might
financial
seem
burden's
like,
bigger.
oh, we're at full capacity, but the problem is you're only getting a certain amount for WPU. So if you decrease the class size, then that teacher increases the cost of educating those students, which that might be worth it. You know, I know that people, you know, in other states,
So there's just a sweet
class
spot
sizes-
between
there is a sweet
how
spot.
big a class can be
Yep.
and how much.
Yep.
Jason,
Good.
you just said.
Yeah, there was something I was gonna say on
Yeah.
that. So just doing some calculations real quick. Let's see.
Prioritize the budget. What things do we
So that's a great point because if you had an opportunity to consolidate schools and say, because it's 1.1 million per elementary in costs that aren't with the teachers or anything that move. So if you were able to close down a school, it's about $1.1 million, and it's not one time, that's ongoing.
That's forever.
Every year.
And also, so if you were, let's say across the board, you were saying our ratio for calculating FTEs, we want to lower that by 1 student in grades K through 12, so 13 grades, right? So right now in Alpine, that's about $1 million per drop per grade. So 13 million to to be able to do it across all. One student decline in that, when we saw that, the 23 in kindergarten, the 24 in, or 26, 26, all those would go down one. So for the central, that 13 million is about 5.5. Or per grade, for every one you drop per grade is about 420,000. So there's a cost to lowering class size, but then there's also that cost of not being able to consolidate because you are using more classrooms because you're lowering the class size.
Can you remind me how many,
Yeah.
you had said once, I remember, how many students we need to be able to like
Break even.
break even, exactly. Do you remember?
Break even on the operation budget?
Yeah,
Wow.
you have
What-
said it before. I
I-
remembered a number, but I can't remember it now.
On a total number? Or
Like
per
how
school?
many like in elementary school
I see
do
what you're
like
saying.
it's I think
We
I
need
heard like
500 kids in the school
we
to
need
make it
652
financially viable.
kids or something like that to make it so that it was
Yeah, that's hard to say right on because we can even, when we do an expenditure by location, we could have one school that has 650, another at 650, and the direct cost could be way higher because the average teacher step is 15 instead of 8
That's
or
true.
things like
yeah,
that.
I totally get that. But around 650-ish could we
Yeah, and I think the 650 to 800 range is what we say for
it's great, right?
financial, but also a lot for educational with having
Mhm.
3 or 4 classes per grade.
So you have a team,
You have
enough
a
teachers
team,
to have a team
Yeah.
that can actually collaborate
So they're
instead
not
of
by
two
themselves.
people.
So you have some
Yeah.
flexibility with, making sure some of the lower students aren't all in one class. You can kind of spread those out.
And
When you
another
only have
thing
two
on
on a team, it's hard.
Hard.
another thing on that is
Especially
like
if
if you're like quarter, let's say you have 24 students more than another FTE, but you only have 2 in that. You have to spread those 24. You have to put 12 in each. But if you have a school that has 1,000, you have 5 at each, and there's those 24 students. It's easy to put 3 or 4 in each one to be able to smooth that over. So that helps principals a lot. I'm sure when you have this big school and you were a little over there, oh, let's put 2 here, 2 here, 2 here, and they're a little bigger, but not adding 10 students per class.
And I know this is gonna be another question that's like it depends on the school, but about how many classrooms do elementary schools have?
Yeah, it depends on which area.
Well,
But
it said
Frank,
29,
you
but
would
I
know.
didn't know if that was a random number or.
Or that's specific.
Our
Depends on
newest
the
builds,
building.
our full-size elementaries have 38 regular
Okay.
classrooms. That does not count computer labs, gyms, or libraries.
Special stuff.
That's
Does
at
that also include
80,000.
the stuff for the SPED and
Yeah, there's classrooms designed in there for special education. Our
But they're
latest-
included in that 38.
They're included in that. Well, if it's a full-size classroom, we've moved away. If it's a 3/4 or a half classroom, we have a lot of those in some of our older designs that were for special education. We don't do that anymore. We design buildings that are all the
Yes,
classrooms
because
are the
that
same
works
size so that
better.
there's more flexibility for principals to.
Frank,
We
is
still
that-
put in restrooms and stuff to accommodate special education students, but the classroom is not like a half size or a 3/4 size classroom.
Frank, is that the same for the 2-story plan and the 1-story plan?
It is, yep. Yeah, we equalized those out when we built Harbor Point down in South Saratoga Springs. We went through those and did a side-by-side comparison so that they have equal support spaces and equal classroom spaces.
Jason, can I just clarify? So
Yeah.
currently in Alpine, to drop class size by 1, it's $1 million per grade level. But in Aspen Peaks, did you say
5.5.
It's about, because I just did that based on 42% of the students, so.
So it's 525?
5.5.
Per grade?
Yeah,
Or
one drop
Per
per
grade is
grade.
about 418,000 instead of a
To do
million.
one across all grades.
All
is
across
For one
It was
student per
5.5.
grade. All grades would be 5.4 million instead of 13.
Yeah, instead of the
To
13.
just drop the one.
And that's again based on the
Yes.
current
To just drop.
salary schedule,
Yeah, it gets bigger every year.
so.
And that's why it's
Well,
so
yeah.
hard
That,
to do
Well,
it,
then
yeah.
as the
Because it's
student
really
count goes
And we'll
down,
have to decide what our salary
that-
schedule is gonna be
Then the cost per
scheduled.
teacher
Yeah.
it goes up,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
More or
right.
less the
So
same.
you do wanna try to maximize the
Similar.
number of students in each class, because then the cost of the teacher goes down.
Unless you're the teacher.
Yeah, unless you're the teacher, right? But if you could stay at that district average, cause that's what you've got, it's when you dip well below that district average, that's what the problem
Yeah.
is,
We
right?
do.
Yeah, schools with
That's why I
300
wanted
yeah,
these additional
students.
numbers. so
Yeah.
that-
One of
It's
the,
expensive.
one of the
Yeah.
things that,
well,
Frank,
you can't do as much stuff, services or programs.
Right, and you
Yeah,
have
'cause there's no-
two
there's no
teachers
money.
that just struggle.
one of the things that Frank didn't mention that I think his team has done an exceptional job is whenever we go out for another build. And one of the things that, as we've talked to legislators and they've done a tour of our buildings, and there's some legislation that is occurring that's wanting us to use, for schools to use some of the same building plans. But over the years, we've started to perfect that design, but it's because Frank and his team, in every new build, he meets with every one of the departments throughout the district. And he takes their considerations and goes back through with the architect and make those changes to make sure that that build is taking those recommendations into effect. Not a lot of other places do that. So as we build each iteration, we said, well, we have full-size classrooms. Well, one of the complaints was these special ed rooms just are not working, right? So we continue to do the same design over and over again, and we're not growing. We're a learning organization. But part of that is because of the way that he approaches the builds. The physical facilities works with the educational team very closely. So kudos to Frank and them for doing that. Okay, Derek, so I know Jason, we've got to get to the financial thing, and you've got a lot of questions for him too. So we'll spend a little bit, probably another 5-7 minutes on this, and then we'll get to Jason's presentation.
And this is going to be available to us, right, this slide?
Yes, this whole slide deck I'm going to share with all of you.
And was this part of the thing we got from Rob?
No.
This is
The Aspen.
I made this just for you.
I know, we're special.
We're special.
I
You're
feel
welcome.
Just
so
for us.
touched.
So we're gonna just about dip into the weeds, maybe skim the tips of the weeds as we go along here. You don't need to remember all the numbers on this. There's not a quiz on these numbers or all the blue numbers that Eric was showing you earlier, thankfully. But the Mountain Ridge and AF Junior, we want to explain a little nuance that's happening here. As you can see the numbers here, I'm not going to quiz you. Just straight up Mountain Ridge, much lower than what AF Junior is, and declining Mountain Ridge is. One of the nuances is that there are about 350, a little more than 350 students that attend American Fork Junior from the Mountain Ridge boundary. And so in order to help the Mountain Ridge's enrollment and bolster that enrollment, we could simply say, hey, let's enforce the boundary and not allow out-of-area students from the Mountain Ridge boundary to come to American Fork Junior. It's an option. If we did that, we would start to get these numbers in here. Now this is if we phased it out. So in 2027, if we said, okay, you were already there before, great, you get to finish out the years at Mountain Ridge. So the 7th graders couldn't come out of area, then the 7th and 8th, then the 7th through 9th, and then obviously continue 7th through 9th. You can see it helps Mountain Ridge a little bit, gets them up above 1,000 students. Helps AF Junior, if you want to say helps AF Junior, sometimes you hear they love their students too. What school doesn't love their students? But one additional nuance, again, to dip down into those tips of the weeds a little bit more, about 90 of those students live in Pleasant Grove. They're in the Mountain Ridge boundary, they attend AF Junior, and they live in Pleasant Grove. Well, as you know, thank you for the laugh, Jason.
It's the same area that we were looking at with Deerfield.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's that chunk.
Yeah.
Because they're all boundary to AF High.
That's right.
Yeah, so for whatever reason, I've heard many different reasons why, but they're going out
I've
of
heard
area.
all the reasons.
Yep. So if we pull out those same 90 kids and say, make the assumption that, hey, if they can't go out of area to AF Junior that they're going to, again, for whatever reason they're going there, we're gonna, in this last line, assume they're not gonna go to Mountain Ridge out of area, they're gonna go to Pleasant Grove Junior, which is where their boundary, I'm making an assumption that they're not gonna go somewhere else for the South District, but that they're gonna go within their district. So pulling out those 90 kids at that same rate, and there's some nuance with 6 years of being able to attend to secondary school, you're part of a boundary of, and et cetera, that was in the bill. But so we're making some assumptions based on assumptions, but it gets us in the ballpark of getting Mountain Ridge closer to 1,000 students. Again, with the assumptions that we restrict the out-of-area students and not allow them to come to AF Junior. So it is an option to consider, recognizing that, again, going back to what current enrollment projections are, that's pretty small for Mountain Ridge as a junior
I
high.
mean, it's smaller than a good portion of an elementary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just making you aware of this. And
Comprehensive curriculum.
the last slide, this is the happy slide. This is the slide of, we have some healthy high schools. They're all around that average. I mean, they're in that 2,300, American Fork a little lower, 2,200, going to 2,100. Lone Peak dips to just barely below 2,100. The Sky Ridge is growing to almost 2,600. But
My high school.
it's a happy slide because there's nothing on here that says, we need to change something now. We can let those sit for the moment, assuming we keep, boundaries the same and we've got those enrollment projections. So we can smile at this one, and I'm gonna turn it back over to.
What about feeder?
Oh, thank you.
Why don't you talk about that?
So, thanks, I almost slipped right by that. This is assuming we keep boundaries the same. There is some interest by some people to have pure feeders. The 100% of an elementary school moves together to their junior high, and 100% of the junior high moves to the high school together. So they don't have to split up from friends, split up from other students they went to school with. It's an option to look at. It becomes a little complicated. One, because we're trying to find those perfect balances, right? As Eric talked about, we can circle up areas and we can hope we get the right numbers that will feed into have a nice balance for the next school, elementary to junior high, etc. There's also a complexity when you have a different number of junior highs than you have high schools. And if you don't have two junior highs that add up to the same number as a different junior high, and okay, this one junior high is going to feed a high school and these two junior highs are going to feed a high school, chances are those enrollments aren't going to balance out to these. So there's ways, though, that doesn't mean it can't be looked at. It doesn't mean that, hey, that's a bad idea and silly, let's move on. It would just provide a challenge of how much can we align those elementary, junior high, and high school boundaries in certain areas. I don't mean to be pessimistic. It'd be very hard to do it across the district as a whole and have 100% pure feeders throughout the entire district. But can it be improved that we can have a higher percentage at each school and there isn't a 20%, 80% split between schools? Or can we have better feeders in that regard? Something to look at. Amber, you had your hand.
So for me, what I'd like to see with feeders is not necessarily that every school 100% goes to the next school, but we have areas that have 10% that goes, or 18%. Freedom is split 3 ways. Like, I'd love to see us fix it so that we don't have anybody that's split 3 ways. Like, there might be, half of them might split half, but try to have the splits be more like half and half rather than 10%, or, like if you only have 10%, oh my gosh, just send them all to the same school. I don't know. So to me, it seems like those kinds of things, those might be fixable, though, where changing it so that everybody goes 100% may not be really a feasible option.
And the thing I like about this is, at the time when those boundaries were made, it probably made sense. But as these communities have declined and aged out, and all of a sudden you've got 10% going, and you're just like, why is that? Well, it's because the community has changed too. So I do think that it would be worthwhile.
Well, and some of those boundaries, like Lone Peak's boundaries were drawn when it was opened.
Yep.
It's almost 30 years old.
Yep.
Some of those areas have never changed, and the community's changed a lot. So there's
now
some
we
of
have
that
2
too.
new hard boundaries we didn't used to have.
Yeah.
That we can't beg and borrow from to.
That's right.
Yeah.
My kids have all gone to Freedom, and it's been kind of awesome because my kids have friends everywhere. My kids have friends at Lone Peak, have friends at Lehigh High, have friends at Skyridge, they have friends in American Fork. So they know people everywhere. So.
And I would say I got way more
So
upset
the
from
rivalry
Freedom
is
than
that they're just
happiness
like,
about it.
whatever, we have friends there.
When I was over
You're
Freedom.
looking at-
But that does help, though. That's a
Yeah.
good perspective because some kids are resilient too,
It is
right?
the most
Well,
important
glass
thing.
And
is
there's,
happy
anyway,
over
it's been, anyway, yeah.
Okay, I want to be able to get to Jason. So, previous boundary studies, these are all the ones that we've done. So you'll have this on the slideshow. Some of these are more significant than others. Some of them were just cleaning up because there was not any building going on in one specific area, and once the building developed in this small little parcel, then it just made sense to boundary that to a different school. The difference now than before is anytime we make a boundary adjustment, we've got to make sure to notify that entire community of anybody that's impacted. So it was a little different and easier back then. Now it's more thorough, but it's good because everyone is notified, and then you get more public input on some of those decisions that you're making. So this is for your consideration to have. That was mentioned that you wanted it, so we can talk about these in a later session. Some considerations for you. Potential future boundary studies. I do think for our staff, Dry Creek is one of those that I think you need to prioritize, as well as figuring out what to do with the Barrett and Deerfield consideration as well. Secondary straddling district boundaries, I think that's necessary for 2027 as well, that we could look at. Mountain Ridge phasing out of areas beginning in 2027. That could be something that we can study. Central and South Lehigh, I know that we need to either consider building consolidation or wait and watch. This new boundary has given you a little bit of time to think about that, but not a lot. And then on the wash list, you've got some of these other areas that we'll continue to watch and maybe consider doing a boundary adjustment as you guys get into your projection book, which Jason has, it's really thick. We look at that all the time. So as you guys know what that book is and how to navigate that, you'll be studying on your own and you'll say, wow, what about this? Then you can request through superintendent to have our team look at it, and we'll look at that for you. Infrastructure, those are just the things that I mentioned at the first that you'll want to consider. So with that, Jason, you're up.
I'll move up here so you guys aren't concerned.
Thank you, Eric. And Derek.
Thank you to the
That
X.
was wonderful.
Affectionately
We are
known
not
as the
gonna
X.
call him that.
I should never have told that. I had like 8 nicknames growing up, and somehow I leak them out, and everybody always calls me
He
those.
told us
and
that's what the team calls him,
It's
so that's why
Derek
I
and
didn't make that up.
our collaboration
I
is
just
called
want
the Ick
them to,
collaboration
like,
because it's
sing and
Derek
dance
and
and-
Eric and
What did you
Terry
call
that
it?
called us the Icks.
He
They
called
call
ICC.
their collaboration
We're
team the
calling
X.
the Derek and Eric is what
'Cause
we're
it's Derek and
Derek
Eric.
is so far from icky though.
But I like to
It's
sing,
an
we're
exclusive club.
Derek and Eric.
Thanks, guys.
Should be a little tap dance that they do together.
on the table.
Some jazz hands.
I'm gonna choreograph you guys.
Thanks for that.
Steve, I appreciate your comment because a lot of times in boundary committees, I'll tell, and they'll say, I want my kid just to know, and they go to the same school with the same kids the whole time, and sometimes it changes great on things. My kids, they've had somewhere, or even when I went to Lake Ridge, and it was kind of a 70-30 or 80-20 of Mountain View Orem, but it was great when you knew the kids that when you're at Mountain View and Orem High and the rivalry in the 90s kind of brings it down a little bit when you're friends with them. If you've never known them, the rivalry is more of a hate you type thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But if they were your buddy in junior high, it brings it down a little bit. Uh-oh. Why did that not work? Oh, I've got to click the right button.
While you're doing that, I suppose I should say that we're going to the next item, which is our budget report, and we'll turn the time over to Jason Sundberg.
And so for today, I only have about 5 slides, and it's a lot with capital. If you're wanting me to, like I did one at the South District last night, and really went into where would it be in if we were to do FY25, if this district on its own, what it would look like, I can do that also. But that's not what I have for tonight.
We're
Tonight's
happy
more of
what
just
you
like
have.
lease revenue bonds, some other considerations of things. Let's see. But I have quite a bit here. Okay. So this is just a lease revenue bond example, just to kind of get your feet wet on bonding. Is it not working?
No.
Oh man.
Like, I think you're seeing something we're not seeing.
There's our
Do have
technology guy.
graduation inserts.
Darren's like, wait, someone else.
Is it just this mirroring? That was the issue there?
Probably.
Does it look right now?
Just black now. There it goes. Now we can see it. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's what we're.
Nope.
Well,
Let me
there's
see
a
yours.
screen sharing thing right in front of it. See that?
I think they might have seen reverse.
There's Nate.
Everyone needs
Thank
a
heavens
Nate.
for everybody who's technologically competent, because it's not me.
It's connecting.
It's our husbands.
Why is that?
My devices
go.
always
No,
just
sorry.
work if I tell
Now
my
we just
husband
had
about
two
it.
super
Like,
phones.
he
Yeah,
doesn't
there
even
you
have to
go.
come do anything.
Some presents.
He just has to
So you
turn it
missed
on
the-
and it suddenly works
Sorry, you didn't
correctly.
even see the first
Hulk
slide.
smash.
Oh.
I know, right?
We
Nate,
are
still-
here.
It's intimidating.
It does look pretty.
Still not.
Well,
I mean, it's
not going into spit.
yeah, because I've got this.
so you've got the slideshow open. It is.
Technology's our favorite, so it's not.
I did do something to me last night. Though.
It's probably like 3 things you have to unclick
I know.
to make it right.
Mm-hmm.
Button somewhere.
Jason, do you wanna share it? I use my computer if you want.
Yeah, is that the one connected? I can share.
Yeah, he's on.
Yeah.
Good, how are you?
Oh, good. pool today that got undermined by a water leak in Provo, and their whole pool like sunk like that. And so we were like drilling holes through the bottom and like jacking the pool up, and then they have a walkout basement, and so the pool's here, and then we have a rock wall, and the water came in and undermined the pool, and then was pouring out the rock wall, and so the rock wall that's supposed to be straight now looks like this big huge hump in the wall, and is like ready to like tip over into the basement. Oh crap.
Is it working for you, Derek?
So much fun.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say, maybe HDMI, but.
There we go.
Oh, there. Perfect. It's in.
It's on this computer.
Like
Ooh, I think I need a new HP instead of a.
That looks like something slopes.
So that's the picture there.
Hey, that's neat.
Sorry for the delay.
It was worth the wait.
Okay, we're back.
It's a good view.
Okay.
This is like my.
So this is an example of least service above. So this is the specifics of the one we did just this summer for the West District. So for new high school and elementary, we needed about $215 million. So how that works, we needed 215 delivered here, but the par amount of the bonds with how they're priced and everything only needed to sell bonds for about 200 plus million. There was a little bit of premium. So the debt, face value of the debt was just 200. What was deposited in the construction fund? Yeah.
Can you knock it back a step and explain what the difference is between the par amount and the premium, and why those are factors?
Yeah. So the amount we knew we needed for construction of a new elementary and high school was 215 million. Does the cursor show up there?
Yeah.
So that's what we needed. So they go and do their pricing model. Stiefel is our advisor there, and then we had with Morgan Stanley and others. So this is saying, okay, with how it's priced and the premium we can get, because we can price it at this amount, investors will want this with a coupon rate of 5%. There's all these factors that go into it, but they're saying, okay, at that amount, we can sell them at face value of 200 plus, just barely. We'll get about 15.5 million of premium. We'll get 216. We only need 215, but we have to pay everyone for what they did on that. The cost of issuance, the underwriters. So you can see there's that amount. So a little over $1 million in fees to be able to take out that debt. So bonding does cost. I mean, because
It's like closing costs.
it's like closing costs, exactly. So you have that up front, but then you pay interest for 20 years also.
Yeah.
So there is, when you're bonding, the cost of the capital is quite a bit.
You have to pay to make the debt.
Right. So the true interest cost we got is about 4.2%. I called our advisor on that today, said it would be about the same today as it was in July. It just really depends. The spreads are a little further, but and this really depends on January 8th, Doug will come and explain more on that on the ratings, the AAA bond rating that Alpine has. New districts probably won't start there, but hopefully can get there.
What would be the average true interest cost if we were to do a GO bond instead of a lease revenue bond? How would that impact?
It's not a big difference on it. So it might be like a 4.1, maybe a 4, but the amount's not. But then there's upfront costs on doing a GO bond, all the campaigning for it. So there's PR things that cost in that.
Right.
So down here at the bottom, for a full year of interest is about $10 million, because this usually when the project starts, you don't have to start making the principal payments till the construction's done. And so, but then the principal and interest, the reason I'm showing this here is I'm going to go to the next slide, give an example of a $40 million if a new elementary wanted to get started right away. So I use these numbers, although one thing to remember when I'm using the same percentages, you're going to pay less per million or 100,000 on a $200 million than you would on a 40, just because of the scale of things. Does that make sense?
And so the 10 million and the 17.8 at the bottom, then you have like the closing costs, right? On top of that, or is that built into those bottom numbers?
Those are so how it works when you're making bond payments,
or do they stretch those payments out over the?
You make payments, so you make a principal payment once a year, and you make interest payments twice a year. But what I was saying, for the first year.
But the cost of issuance.
Yeah, the cost of issuance is just gone. That was like closing costs.
And that's like right up front.
But what this interest only is for this specific one, they set it up where the construction of that high school is gonna take 3 years or so. So for the, we took out this bond in July, so it really looks from March to September, it was kind of a partial. So for the fiscal year of FY '26, it's about 7 million payment for interest only, and the principal stays at the same. The next year it's 10, and then when the West becomes their own, they have another year of 10. Then after that, for another 17 years, they'll have a $17.8 million payment of principal and interest.
Okay, but plus the cost of issuance that would have been like, if you were going to total the cost of principal, interest, bond issuance,
Right.
you'd take the
And
cost
that's
of
all in
the
the
cost.
TIC, that true interest cost.
Oh,
thing.
that's all part of that.
That's all
interest
part
cost.
of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not on top of.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so the actual interest, if you're not taking the cost of issuance, would be a little bit lower when you're looking
Okay.
at that rate. Alright, so this would be potential lease revenue bond if it happened in 2026, for needing a new elementary, about $40 million. So these would be the amounts. So you could go out. What I added here is just to be able to cover the interest for a year. The interest for 1 year would be about a little less than $2 million. So it would most likely need to be included in the debt you take out to be able to do that. So to get 42 million or so, you'd need to face value about 39. So this would be an interest payment in the first year of about 2 million, and then the payment going forward after that 1 year to pay it all off for another 17 to 20 years is 3.5 million per year. So we'll just use the same amounts. Then I did one here. If it was in this board decided, well, in after we start providing educational services, so it's 2027, fall of 27 or early 28. We want to do a lease revenue bond for 130 million, so we can rebuild AF High for maybe 90 million, and a new elementary maybe 40 million. That's what the 130 is there. You wouldn't have to have any extra interest. So this is showing just an example of, okay, if the par amounts were 120, about 9.5 million of premium. So to make those payments, the first year or two would be 6 million, but then the payments would be about 10.8 million going forward. Just to kind of see how these things cost in looking at that. Any questions on these as we go through?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I thought we only had 70 million to pay on that rebuild. Didn't they do 60 million on it already?
On the
AF
AF
high school.
High, each year it goes up. So I was talking to Frank, when I talked to Frank, texted Frank today, he said 80 million. He texted, I'll show you the text, he said 80 million. That's if we did it right now, but if it's 2 years down the road, I just, to be safe, put 90 million.
Tariffs,
We
labor costs.
Yeah, normally we'll add at least 10% per year just to cover inflation and stuff. And that's, it used to be like 5%, but the way things gone here in the state of Utah, it's been jumping so rapidly, and construction costs have gone up so much. And you got to factor in, a rebuild's always more expensive than to just build new, because you're trying to keep some parts of the building up and operational, so you have some things that you got to temporarily put in and then tear out later on. Cost of demolition is a factor into it. So a rebuild certainly is more expensive, and rebuilding on an occupied site
With students.
there's just a little more cost to it. It's tricky. We've done it. We did Lehigh. It's very possible and doable, but it is a little bit more expensive to do.
The sad part too is if you look back, if we looked up how much Skyridge cost to build, it would be less than that amount, right?
Oh,
Wasn't
yeah.
it 60 or 70?
I think we were like 60,
I thought it was
65
about
million
70.
when we did Skyridge. We did Cedar Valley. Construction cost was like
That is
71,
heartbreaking.
72 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good to know. Thank you.
And then for example, the 40 million for an elementary school, that's the cost, the true cost to build it. That's not the final cost of that
That
you.
doesn't include
Operational.
Okay.
the land.
Okay.
Would be, yeah.
Land's a separate deal.
Okay. That was.
So we already
Just
own the
construction
land,
costs.
We already
so we
own.
would need the 40 million on top.
Yeah.
And that would be to furnish it, other things.
Okay.
Okay,
The total
good
cost.
question.
But in 2 years, that might not be 40 anymore. It might be 45 or. Okay, this I wanted to just share with you. This is kind of estimated fund balances at the time of the split. So looking at all of these, the Fund 10 right now, this was our FY25. So as we ended FY25, that was the fund balance. I think it will stay about the same, if not grow a little bit in that. But So that is something that needs to be divided between the three. Those are fund balances. The student activity, the Fund 21, it will be divided, but I think it should just stay with the schools because it's all school. So the schools in the central will keep all their fund balance and so forth. The Alpine Foundation, this is the amount, I'm going to share tomorrow with board presidents, 3 board presidents, I and Robert will meet. The Alpine Foundation fund balance is like $7 million, but there's a lot of those are at a school or a teacher location, and actually the Aspen Peaks has quite a bit more than the other areas, just with schools or teachers building up those. But this $3 million is the part that are like district level that could be divided.
That's the liquid part.
Yeah, the projects here, this really won't be divided. It's whatever is in the building fund of a leased revenue bond. So at the end of FY25 there was 19 million, but that was all for the junior high that just was finished. There'll be a big fund balance at the end of this year, but it all is going to the high school elementary that's building out west. Debt service, this will get divided. Capital outlay, so this is the one I want to talk about here. So there should be, we try and keep about 10 million just in the regular capital, but there should be 124 million in the building fund. And I'm going to have the next slide will show a little bit more what that building fund is within the capital fund. And then just these others will be divided. The OPEB trust goes with benefits for retirees, and that'll just be divided with how much the liability, so the liability and the assets should match in that. So, but looking at this, just the building fund, this 134 million, depending on how negotiations go with boards and figuring out how that's all going to be divided, my estimate is that Aspen Peaks will get somewhere between 42 and 43% of this specifically. And so that's probably about 51 to 53 million available either right at the time of the split, or my thought too is if a district's saying, well, this is what I think we'll have, could we get that earlier? And then when you split that asset, just say this is what it was, but we already took it. It's pretty simple math on that, but it just depends on negotiation with that. So this is an opportunity if there's something that the Aspen Peaks board wanted to do before, there's some funds there without having to take on debt that will have interest for 20 years on. But also knowing that this money isn't just free money to use, because it could be used somewhere else in just trying to decide, weighing the options on that. Any questions on this one?
What are the LBA projects? What does that stand for?
So that's Fund 30 is anything where we do a lease revenue bond. So that's the local building authority. So that's the one I was saying. This fund balance is going to jump at the end of FY26, which we're in now. But all those funds are tied to specific projects, so that won't get divided up. But these other ones, like the nutrition services, this will get divided to the 3 districts. This is a workers' comp one; it'll get divided. The warehouse, and then of course the OPEB the central will probably get a larger portion of the OPEB trust there because they'll have a larger portion of. The West has very few employees that will qualify for the OPEB benefits in the future.
But employees that retired already, how do you split that up? Because they don't really belong to any of the 3 districts.
It's a great question. We're going to talk about that more tomorrow in our meeting with board presidents, trying to figure that out. But a lot of it, one option is to say one district takes all the retirees, but they also, the fund it's 88.8% funded, plus there's another 20 million. So it's over 100% funded if you take the part from Fund 10, but 90% is almost fully funded anyways. So if one district said, we'll just take all the retirees, but we'll take the money to pay for it anyways, it's going to be.
So why would you recommend splitting it over keeping it together and having it managed between the 3 districts?
Well, we're looking at different options. One is to let a third party take all of it. The option I like is to say, well, there's employees that are going to go to these new districts. It's going to be weird for them if they go work for Aspen Peaks for 5 years and then retire, and then they have to go get the insurance from a different district they didn't retire from. So my thought is, we know where all these employees are going. I mean, we will know where they are if they're current employees that qualify for that. It's for ones that started before 2006. And also we know where retirees mostly retired from too. So we could say, oh, they retired from AF High, let's assign them there. Here's the trust for that. So you have the asset and the liability. But
Or we send to the third party.
yeah. But the nice thing is the school board won't have to manage that stuff, they'll
Yeah.
hire people that
Kinda
will,
like
that.
if that takes care of that. But we'll have more on that. Okay, so with the building fund, so in the capital levy, right now, there's about, this is that's not showing up, but right there, the 1729 capital levy, that's the total rate right now for this tax year we're in for all things in Fund 32, the capital. Now, so that, we call that an increment we say is the fourth decimal place. So you just see the 7 in that. That's what's an increment. So there's 17.29 increments in the capital levy. And so, but 10.37 of those are going to a building fund that isn't being used in our regular thing that Frank or technology, so the physical facilities technology uses the other 7 increments of funding to be able to do repairs, to be able to order things in technology, capital things. So the 10.37 increments is what it was set up for a few years ago, is to say we can set this up as what it was is debt service rates were coming down as we were paying off geo bond debt, capturing some of that to be able to put in a building fund to be able to, because right now at 10.37 increments, that's about $60 million per year for Alpine. So with that, you could build, an elementary and a half or more each year without having to pay interest for 20 years. That's what we were trying to get to. The split happened, now that's set up still, but it's going to be an asset, a great thing for new districts. The West is probably going to have to use all of that plus some to be able to build and pay for lease revenue bonds. The Central and the South, they have the option to be able to move that if they need. If they don't want that much, they could move those increments from capital to operations to be able to make up any shortfalls.
So that 10.37 could end up being for us 7 point something or 8 point
Correct.
something, because we don't have a lot of new, like the West does.
Right.
And then
or
more
we
for
keep it-
more for ongoing
Have it
existing
rolling.
stuff and less for future stuff.
Yeah, if we keep it at 10 for 5 years
Right.
and build up a fund, then we'd be like, well, if we ever,
Right.
Yeah. Or what Alpine's use it for, and I think new ones will do, if we're saying we need to build right now, it's a lease revenue bond, but we're going to use a portion of that money to, because when you do a lease revenue bond, you can't have debt service pay for that. It has to be from operations or capital. So some of that could be there. But back here, so the value of one increment for Aspen Peaks is about $2.6 million. Not just in the capital, but every levy there is. When you're looking at the fourth decimal place where that 7 is, which makes 17, every time you increase that or decrease that by 1,
2.6.
you're going to get 2.6 million swing that way. So after July 1st, if it stayed at the 10.37, Aspen Peaks would generate $27 million annually in that building fund. So every 2 years you could build an elementary or more.
Does capital stay the same or does it float down?
It floats down with the certified tax rate, but
Okay.
yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Oh, I think I just have the notes here. Let's see. All right. So, yes. So that question you're having there right now, and if you'd like me to do a further one in a future meeting, right now, as I'm looking at FY25, if Aspen Peaks was its own, it's about breaking even. Maybe a little bit, like less than $1 million deficit if expenses and revenue were just set as they are. So it's a pretty good place to be. But it's probably better to have a little cushion, about a 2% adding to fund balance every year. So have instead of having a deficit of about $1 million, have a surplus of 4 or 5, 6 million. So to be able to do that, it would take about 3.1 increment increase to be able to do that. So you could do that without raising taxes overall by saying we're just going to change the 10.3 down 3.1. We're still going to generate money in this capital to be able to use, but now we have a little cushion. We're not going to have any deficit. So because 2%, your estimated operating expenses for Fund 10 and 23 are probably for FY25 about $366 million. So a 2% cushion is about $7 million. So if you're needing to do about an $8 million increase divided by the 2.6 per increment, you need about 3 increments. 3 increment increase, if you weren't wanting to touch the building fund but just increase one of the operational levies, the board or the voted, that would just be about a 5% tax increase. So if you're saying we want to keep the building fund where it is at the 10.37, but we want to be able to have a little cushion in our operations, it would take a 3.1 increment increase, about a 5% tax increase. Or you could just say, instead of the 10.37, we're going down 3, we're going to be around 7 in that, and that 7's going to generate 15 million, or yeah, a little bit more, about an 18 or 19 million in that. So that's the last slide I have here, and it is 5:30. What other questions do you have?
So is there money currently in the capital fund? Was that?
The building fund?
Yeah, the building fund.
Yeah.
So how much is in there currently that we were projected to come to?
Well, I'm estimating if nothing gets used, there'll be about 124. This shows 134 because we try and keep about $10 million outside of the building fund. That capital one is all of that 17 increments, but that 10 increments is in that. But that's adding, there'll be 60 million that's coming in this year, and there'll be another 60 million next year. So it's probably around 60 million now, and it'll be another 60 million next year.
So it'll probably be 120 million, and we're looking at 42% of that or something.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at
50 to 53 million.
That's right, he said 51 to 53.
Okay. And it'd be interesting to go through those and be like, if we're getting, anyway, whatever it is, $5 million a year that keeps getting added to this fund, then it's like, all right, well, if there's already $50 million in there, like, in 5 years we'd have enough to build a high school. So
Yeah, because
Yeah,
if
you don't-
if you decide we're not going to do
7
anything
years.
with West Lehigh Elementary, we're going to take, when the split happens, we're going to take our 50 to 53 million, and then we're going to add 27 million for a couple years. Maybe the AF high school rebuild isn't for 3 or 4 years, and you have enough interest free to be able to pay for it with cash rather than to be able to
And
do that.
then to bond more.
Bond. But then you'd have to keep that 10.37 and weigh, well, do we raise taxes by 3 increments, which isn't a huge increase of 5%.
yeah, because we want to
but
keep
it-
some fund.
Mhm.
Anyway,
Yeah.
you don't want to liquidate your entire fund because
But
then
there's
if there's an
also-
emergency, then you're like, oh crap.
Like I shared with the South Board yesterday, that right now, that slight $1 million, $900,000 deficit you're looking at each year that you want to make up plus some to have a cushion, that's if you kept expenses the same. But from Eric's presentation, if there's opportunities to be able to, well, in this one, do we need 7 elementaries? Could we do 6? In this one, 4 and do 3? Then
Lower
you
operating costs.
then
lower-
your every one of those that you're consolidated becomes a $1.1 million savings
Per year.
So then it offsets the increase you would need. And it's not all, again, re-emphasizing the consolidating schools isn't all about saving the money. It's also well, there's 300 students here, 400 students here. Is it better to have 700 for them educationally also?
It's only a few things to think about.
Add it to the list.
Yeah.
Educationally, yes. Traffic-wise, no.
I'll think about that between 3 and 5 p.m. Okay,
Thank you.
everything.
Thank you for
Thank
letting
you.
us present today.
Thank you, Jason.
Okay,
And when we
we
get that-
would like to totally, you're asking a
I was
question?
thinking, are we gonna get that, those
Your
slides?
The slide deck, yes.
Okay.
I'll make a
Yeah.
PDF and send it.
Okay.
Official statement.
Thank you.
All right, thank you to Eric and Jason and everybody, and Frank, thanks for letting us put you on the
Yes,
spot.
thank you, Frank.
Thank you so much, Derek. If there's no further business, our study session is adjourned at 5:34 p.m. and we'll start in the other room at 6. Member Burrows will share an inspirational thought.
Thank you. Can you hear me? We'll try this one. Okay, so as I thought about the season we're in right now, with it being December leading up to some great holidays coming up, the word that keeps coming to my mind is joy. There's lots of joy, whether it's teachers because they know they only have, 6 more days to teach, or kids are excited about those presents that are wrapped under the tree. There's lots of joy happening. And I found this quote that I really liked from Marianne Williamson. Joy is what happens to us when we allow ourselves to recognize how good things really are. And I love thinking about that it's up to us whether we get to have joy just right now, counting down those days, or have joy in our lives every day. We can recognize good things in our lives and keep that joy with us at all times.
Thank you, Board Member Burrows. Hold on one second. It's just a few minutes early. We were going to start our public hearing at 6:10 p.m. Bree, am I allowed to start early? Okay. Hold on. We'll make a little bit of a. Okay. Do I have a motion to close the board meeting?
I move to close the board meeting.
Okay, we have a motion from Board Member Brammer and a second from Board Member Bonner to close our meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The voting has been unanimous. Do we have a motion to open the public hearing? Okay. All right, we're gonna reverse this then. Do we need to take a break, or can I go ahead with community comments? Because we closed the meeting. If I open the meeting back up? Okay. We will do that. Can I have a motion to amend the agenda and move to community comments? What if I just close the public hearing? No. All right. We are going to make an amendment to, I need a motion to make an amendment to the agenda to have community comments before the public hearing.
I move that we revise the agenda to move community comments to before the public meeting.
And I have a second. Okay, we had a motion from Board Member Sparty and a second from Board Member Burrows to amend our agenda and move community comments to before the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Okay, we are going to move to the community comments portion of our meeting. As a reminder, speakers will have 3 minutes each, and comments should be directed to the board as a whole. Please state your name and your community and the city of your residence. We will start out with Victoria Crockett.
Hello. This is very formal. So sorry. I've never been one of these things. I don't know how I'm supposed to do this. But so I'm Victoria Crockett. I live in Lehigh. I have some fellow neighbors from my area. Our children currently attend North Point Elementary. But because of the boundary study that just happened and was voted on by Alpine School District, next year our kids are going to be moving to River Rock Elementary School. And we hear great things about River Rock, so I don't know if we're super upset about that. But our concern is that this is only going to be a temporary fix, that our area is still growing. The area in River Rock is still growing. The area in North Point is still growing. And we think that there needs to be more happening to help support the students, our kids. And specifically, we would love to have the elementary school built in Cold Spring Ranch community, the land that's already owned by Alpine School District. When a lot of us moved into the neighborhood 5 years ago, the builder said, and this land is owned by the school district. Like one day there'll be an elementary school. So we've been hoping for a long time for this, that it would be such a blessing for us. And especially as the area is growing, we felt less like, oh, it would be nice, and more like, this is a need. This is something that we really need to support our kids and to support the teachers. I know that North Point teachers are struggling in a lot of ways with how many kids, I know you know, Miss Knight. So that's why we're here, because we really hope that this is something that we can have happen soon to break ground, to get our school to support our kids. So thank you.
Thank
You
you.
did a great job, so thank you.
Thank you. Our next our next comment will be by Lisa Johnson.
Point of order, just before we do that. Do we have a timer so that we know? Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lisa Johnson, and I live in Lehigh. I work as an aide, an intervention aide at North Point Elementary. And the first year that I taught there, we taught in a kindergarten classroom. We had the whole classroom, yes. The next year that we taught, we fit into an office in the library. Now we have 6 or 7 aides that are teaching intervention. We fit into that room with 3 tables. Otherwise, we were pushing into classrooms. This year, again, we're in an office, but we have so many more kids that we're serving. We have aides rolling fold-out tables and little plastic benches. We're teaching in the hallways. We're teaching in the breezeways between the hall and the courtyard. Like, we're finding any space possible. Our kids are not getting our best because of this. And I know that you guys have done your best. Alpine School District has done their best with boundary studies, with changes, and I think that the boundary study that just changed, they're going to send our kids to River Rock. That is a good step forward, but we are electing to have a new district. We have put you guys in place because we want different choices. We want changes. We want you guys to serve the needs of our area. It was too big. There were so many different needs. We need our needs met. And so my kids have now, this is our 3rd boundary change, and we have only moved 1 time. It's so, sorry, I'm really nervous. It's just not good for their well-being to be upheaved and moved so frequently, and we don't know what the future holds. But we do have this land, and you guys have the opportunity to be creative and make different choices than Alpine has. Lehigh City is putting in high-density housing over and over and over again with no thought or plan of how we're going to educate these kids. But you guys have the chance to see into the future. Don't put a Band-Aid over this problem, because it's going to be a problem again in another year or 2 years or 3 years. We're going to be in this exact same place. Let's make the choice now to solve the problem and not keep putting it off. Let's build the school and give our kids the education that they need, and let's plan for the future rather than just trying to fix the problem in the present. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Lisa. Our next comment is by Allison Powell.
I'm not sure if I have a ton of different viewpoints to share, but I just wanted to back up what my neighbors have said, that we are in that Cold Spring area ranch. Our kids are at North Point right now. We are, from what I've been told, North Point is at around 1,100 or 1,120 kids. And during that boundary study, the numbers that were sent out, they had those 2030 projections that put North Point and River Rock up in, I think, 1,180 and 1,190. So that's puts those schools back up above where North Point even currently is in the next 4 years. And I know if we wait till we get back to those numbers, we're going to be in the same situation. And from what I've been told, it takes 1.5 years to 2 years to get a school built. And so I just back up that like we need to get something moving now and before we're back in the same situation with 2 schools being overcrowded again. And I echo what they said as well, that like we voted, that's why I voted to have Alpine School District split, because I knew there were so many needs up here, and Saratoga Springs had so many needs, and they're getting, I think, a lot of their needs met right now, and I hope that you guys will move forward and help our part of this growing neighborhood in Lehigh also meet our needs with our kids and our schools. And thank you guys for all that you do.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Please know that the board listens carefully, but we are not able to engage in dialogue during this portion of the meeting. So just so you know that, thank you for sharing. At this point, we need to move to our public hearing. Bree, can I ask a point of order? Okay. All right, now I need another motion to close our board meeting. That was part of the community comments of our regular board meeting, and we need a motion to close the board meeting to move to our public hearing.
I move to close our board meeting.
Do I have a second? Okay. We have a motion to close our regular meeting by Board Member Burrows and seconded by Board Member Bonner. And we will vote on that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The voting has been unanimous and our regular board meeting is closed. We will now move to the public hearing. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I move to open the public hearing for fiscal year budget 2027, 26.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Board Member Brammer and a second by Board Member Hart to open our public hearing to discuss the fiscal year 2026 budget. We will vote on opening that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The voting has been unanimous, and we will move to our public hearing. Bree, do we have a sign up of any sort? Okay. No one has signed up for the public hearing, so now we will motion to close the public hearing.
I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Board Member Sparty and a second by Board Member Bonner to close our public hearing. We will now vote. All those in favor to close our public hearing say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The voting has been unanimous, so we are back into our regular board meeting. The first item of routine business is the approval of our November 25th minutes. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve the minutes from our November 25th meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Board Member Bonner and a second by Board Member Thieler to approve our November 25th minutes. And all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say no. The voting has been unanimous. Our first action item is our discussion/action items, and our first one is going to be the fiscal year 2026 budget. We are going to turn some time over to Board Member Bonner to give us some information about the budget.
Okay, I had to laugh because somebody said to me last week, it looks like someone just did your budget in Excel. And I was like, yep, that was me. I did our budget in Excel. So awesome. We're in kind of a weird situation with our budget because we're in the middle of the fiscal year right now. But SB 188 that is the district split bill that passed a year or two ago says that we get $60 per student as of January 1st. So we get the dollars even though we're in the middle of the fiscal year. So we had to set up a budget for the second half of this fiscal year, but that $60 per student actually is for the calendar year. So it has to be for the last half of the fiscal year 26 budget and the first half of the fiscal year 27 budget. So we sat down and kind of looked at it. And we thought, we recognize that we'll probably have a lot more expenses on the back half of the year than we will this beginning half of the year. And so we wanted to be really conservative. But there are a couple of tricky things happening, some of which are currently all of the Alpine District policies roll over to be our policies now unless we have specifically changed them. And so that means that board member compensation policy, items like that are all basically already in place, and we had to make sure that we budgeted enough dollars to cover those, even if in the next few months we decide we want to do some type of change to that compensation. We have to have the dollars set aside in the budget. So as I walk through the budget, and it makes me laugh because you don't usually go through every line of the budget, but I'm going to go through every line. It'll be very exciting. One of the things that will happen is we're planning on hiring a superintendent and a business administrator over the next couple of months. We also think we may want to hire some assistants or some other positions in the next little bit. Their contracts probably won't start till July 1st, but we may need to offer them some type of salary or stipend to work the first 6 months of the year. So we put $225,000 in that budget. We also set aside $100,000 for additional stipends of various types. Like if we need to hire a graphic designer, or if we need to hire a webmaster, or if we need to hire something that Alpine is not going to be able to do for us, or if we need to pay some Alpine employees because they already have a 40-hour-a-week job, and if we're asking them to do something that's really above and beyond, we wanted to make sure that we could compensate them for that. So we put that money there also. Right now, we don't have any capital expenses that we're looking at in the next 6 months. Then we have some interesting things for the board. So board members' salaries are for November and December 2025, and then January through December 2026. Current Alpine policy is that board members make $1,000 a month, times 7, times 14, $91,000. Benefits. One of the benefits that Alpine does offer to their board members is insurance coverage. That insurance coverage costs, if you take it out for an entire family, can cost $30,000 a year. So 30,000 times 7, except for one of us would have done the couple, so we figured it out. It's about $217,000. That is if all board members choose to take insurance. They may not, but we had to budget what the possible total amount would be. Expenses are for things like mileage. We'll all get a district laptop. We're all attending the Utah School Boards Association conference in January. Various things like that. We worried there might be some other things, so we put $36,000 in there, hoping that that again is an over estimate of what we will need. Communications and marketing, we think we'll probably need to communicate to somebody something over the next year. So we put $100,000 in that budget also, and then $25,000 in general expenditures. So that total amount is $794,000, which would leave us $1,206,000-ish, $246,000, I guess, ish, for the second half of the year when we put together our fiscal year 27 budget. I think the hope is that all of these amounts are slight or extreme over estimates, but we just have no idea what it's going to be, so that's what we decided to put in.
Thank you. Do we have a motion about the fiscal year 2026 budget?
So I'll move to accept the fiscal year 26 budget.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion from Board Member Bonner and a second from Board Member Hart to approve the fiscal year 2026 budget as written. We will now open it up for discussion. Is there anything anyone would like to add or talk about?
Is this working? I'd like to add that we have also, been in conversations with both the West and the South District, and they're also approving similar budgets for similar reasons, both known and unknown. And I think all three districts are attempting to be conservative and over budgeting what we anticipate probably needing. But
any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, we will vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. The voting has been unanimous. The next item on our agenda is a discussion of board member compensation. We will turn the time over to Board Member Brammer to give us some background.
Okay, well, I won't repeat a lot of what Amber said, but she did a great job talking about how a lot of the policy work works now. Typically, we will take the policies from Alpine School District and we will pull them over, and then we have the opportunity to change those. For the purposes of board member compensation, as we've talked about it in our different work and study sessions, we would like to continue with the Alpine School District current compensation, which is $1,000 for each board member per month. And it is currently offered to use the health insurance benefits for the board members. And that is an area that we have been exploring ways to save the district money and also increase the compensation. So let me tell you how we've been talking about it so that you can know what we're exploring. And I believe that we'll vote on it in January. But a lot of businesses and a lot of municipalities around us offer a stipend in lieu of insurance benefits. And so currently the rates for insurance benefits within Alpine School District are about $32,000 for a family, about $22,000 for a couple, and a little over $10,000 for an individual. And so, in the budget that you all were just able to review, you could see that that comes to about $215,000 if we were all to take those benefits, given some of us are couples, some of us have families. And so when we were talking about it, many of us come from an area where we are already receiving health insurance benefits, either through a spouse or through business, through other jobs. And so we don't necessarily need that, but we wanted to explore this opportunity to save the district money by offering a stipend in lieu of that insurance benefit. And what we landed on, in order to do that, you have to avail those funds equally to everyone. So even though I have a family and the insurance benefit would be about $32,000, someone that's only a couple would get a $22,000 benefit for health insurance, but you want to equate those. So you want that benefit to be equal for everyone. And so as we discussed it, we thought that that would be fair to consider each of us as an individual that would receive health insurance only as that stipend in lieu of insurance. And so that would increase the stipend to about $849 per month. And so that's kind of our thought, to save money on insurance benefits for all of us and also be able to increase the compensation for school board members.
Thank you, Board Member Brammer. We will now open this up for further discussion. Is there anything else anyone would like to add?
I just think, in a lot of ways, I think that idea is a real win-win for the district and for the board member, because it's hard as a board member to say you're just going to turn away this benefit that's, $30,000 a year. But if you already have insurance, it's kind of, but if I can take a stipend and save the district $20,000, then that's probably a great idea. So I'm appreciative of the thought that's gone into that, and I like the idea.
Any further discussion? Okay. A change in compensation would require a public hearing, so we will hold that in conjunction with our next board meeting on January 15th. So this was a discussion item only. Our next item is a discussion also about opening a district-wide boundary study for all schools in the Aspen Peaks School District. We will turn some time over to Jason Hart to make a presentation.
All right. So this is a thing with an opportunity and a chance for us as a district to really kind of address the needs of our local communities. And so as we've been having discussions back and forth, and I know for me, as I've been hearing my constituents from my area, and Cold Springs especially, and a lot of other areas, there's obviously a need to explore what can we do, especially within the new parameters of our the Aspen Peak School District. And so this is a thing that we've been kind of floating around as something that we can explore to see what could we do to help address the needs of our communities. And even in our study session today, we are given different numbers and different facts that we still need to kind of look over and try to wrap our heads around. But it's one of those things where by having this more local control that we have, we can address and hopefully address the needs of our communities. And that could lead to a lot of different outcomes. I don't want to say that's going to be predetermine anything, but it's a way that we believe that could potentially help us relieve pressure in areas where it needs to accommodate the needs of other schools that might be declining, so that way we can have a good quality educational experience for all of those in our district.
Thank you, Board Member Hart. We would like to open this up for discussion amongst the board.
Yeah, I just want to make those of you who were not here at the study session aware that the district staff did a great job on explaining numbers to us and a lot of great information. So if you were not here, I suggest you go back and you can listen to it, or it was filmed too, right? Or watch it, and you can see those numbers. I'm in West Lehigh also, so I see the big numbers, but we did talk about the low numbers on the east side and how just 7 years ago they were in our spot, but now they're down significantly. So I found it fascinating. I think it would be great for everyone, if you're worried about those numbers, to see what they had to say, because I know, to me, it helped me open my eyes, and I do want to be creative, and I do know we need relief in some areas right now, but other areas we need to look at their numbers and see how to best serve their students also.
I just wanted to thank all of you that came to talk about the Cold Springs school that has been discussed. One thing that came up a lot while we were talking about dividing the Alpine School District is what happens to these areas that are just outside of the border that currently attend the schools inside of the border of what is Aspen Peaks. And so part of this boundary study should incorporate those areas, you know, the community of Saratoga Springs that currently would come up, the area of Pleasant Grove that currently attend schools in Cedar Hills and also American Fork. And so we really want to take a good look at a comprehensive boundary study to see, you know, how do we best serve students across the district, and even those students that attend schools in our district that may be affected by these new boundaries. And so that's why I appreciate Jason extending this to the full district, so that we can make sure that we play the big picture and make the best decisions.
So I'm really supportive of doing a district-wide boundary study for a lot of reasons. I think we have different issues in different areas with boundaries. Currently, some of the schools on the east side are declining, but some of their boundaries have kind of some weird parts. Like Cedar Ridge has 10% of their kids that go to AF High, while 90% of their kids go to Lone Peak. And there's a little tiny section of Highland Elementary's boundary that goes to Timberline, while the other like 85% go to Mountain Ridge. And then when I was serving on the Alpine board, I heard so many concerns from parents at Freedom Elementary that they actually split 3 ways to 3 junior highs, and they kind of end up at 4 high schools. And so it's kind of, I would love to see us explore if some boundary changes could help even out enrollment, but also fix some of those weird little pieces that we have that can be damaging to students when there's such a small number that goes from one school to the next school. and everybody else goes to a different one. And so I'd love to see if we could fix that. We've got some secondary issues too that are interesting that I'd love to address. So I'm really supportive of moving forward with looking at everything district-wide.
Okay, this has been a great discussion. I just want to add one thing to it. I want Cold Springs Ranch to know that we have not forgotten you. This does not mean that we are making a decision one way or the other. We are gathering all of our information, and we are grateful to district staff for the boundary realignment that was just made. I feel that that gives you a little bit of relief, at least for this in the short term. And so this discussion does not mean anything. Don't read anything into it other than the fact that we want to carefully look at all of the boundaries in our district and see what we can do. So any other additions to our discussion? Okay, thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is the district logo contest, and our communications committee has some information for us on this. I will turn the time over to Board Member Burrows, who is chair of our communications committee, to give us a basic overview.
I'm excited to talk about this. This is the fun item, okay? It's a fun one. As we are a brand new school district, there are a lot of new things we have to do, including we need a logo. We need to start branding ourselves. And I think was it you, Amber? Okay, she had the idea to have a student contest where we use our high school students to help us design our logo for our new school district. I'm a part of a coalition in Lehigh where we were able to do something similar to this, and so we are still working out the exact details, but a general timeline is we are hoping to open it next week. So students over the Christmas break can use their creative minds and start working on things. It won't end until the end of January. As you all know, we're looking for a superintendent, hoping to find one at the beginning of the year. So we would love our superintendent to have input on the logo also. But and then we will select it in February after we have a superintendent. But we would like to have the whole community involved. We will probably choose some logos depending on how many we have, right? And then we'll be able to put it out to the communities to help vote for which logo we will use. I have already talked to someone from Adobe about allowing our students to work one-on-one with their employees so they can design the logo, but we want it to be professional. We want it to look professional, and so they can help our students make their designs a reality that is a professional look. With this, we've also discussed having a prize, not just, hey, this is great, you should do it, but hey, you can earn money by doing this and helping our district out this way. When they're adults, they'll probably be like, hey, I designed that. But when they're kids, they want something as the prize. But yeah, I'm really excited about this opportunity that we have, that we can get not just our community involved, but we can get our students involved and use their talents. A couple of things I did want to say. So we will share this on social media pages, but we'll also send out the information to all high school and middle school art and graphic design teachers so that they can start helping their students as well. And we will open up this contest for 9th to 12th graders. Okay?
All right, we would like to open this for discussion. Anything anyone else has to say?
I'd like to say something. As a student, when I was a kid, I got a chance to help with the logo for a new elementary school. Then when I opened Thunder Ridge Elementary as a principal, I got to be part of that just fun of picking a name, picking a mascot, picking the professional logo and all those things. It is exciting to be part of that process, and I think we'll have a lot of students feel like giving that a shot, and it'll be a fun thing.
Thank you. Sounds like we are all in agreement for the communications team to move forward. We're excited about the possibilities. Our next item on the agenda is to open our business administrator search. Do we have a motion to open the search for business administrator of Aspen Peak School District and appoint USBA, the Utah School Board Association, to assist with that search?
I move to open the search for business administrator of Aspen Peaks and appoint the Utah School Boards Association to assist with that search.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Okay, we have a motion from Board Member Thieler and a second from Board Member Bonner to open the search for business administrator of the Aspen Peak School District and to appoint USBA to assist with that search. This item is now open for discussion.
I'm just curious if the board has thought about perhaps not using USBA to conduct the search for the business administrator. We are using the USBA for our superintendent search, and it's been great to work with them. I just, from that experience in our conversation with them, I wondered if it might work to either conduct it through different means that we've talked about, or hire a headhunter for that.
Okay.
Because it's more of a business role as opposed to like an educational role like the superintendent.
Any other comments?
I'm not opposed to looking at hiring a headhunter or doing something, more mainstream, I guess. I'm not opposed to doing that if that's something we're interested in doing.
I think at least initially in the fee that we were charged to have them help with the brochure creation, the brochure dissemination of the superintendent search, the BA search is already included in that. So at minimum, we can have them help with the brochure with their graphic designer and some of the printing costs. At minimum, we should avail ourselves, I think, of that. But then certainly we could explore other avenues, but I think it's already paid, like it's already part of the cost we've paid to have their graphic designer help us. So I'd say at least we take advantage of that part and then see what else.
What about could we amend the motion to say something like, we'll open the business administrator search and direct the business administrator search committee to explore some options of how they think the best way to do that would be? Would that be a friendly motion?
I think that'd be all right.
Is that a formal motion from you?
Well,
or should we amend that?
do we have to amend the motion
amend it?
first?
Okay, so I'm gonna I'm gonna make an amended motion, which would be to open the business administrator search and empower the business administrator search committee, who I think we have 3 board members that are doing that, to look at various options for finding a business administrator.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we will vote. All in favor of opening the search for business administrator of Aspen Peak School District and looking at various, how did you word that, Amber?
Having the BA search committee.
Having the committee look at options to conduct that search. Please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. The voting for our amended motion has been unanimous. The next item on our agenda is to initiate the process to create an Aspen Peak School District 501c3 nonprofit foundation. By doing this, we want to provide an opportunity for people and businesses and other foundations to donate to the Aspen Peak School District at this historic time. The foundation can serve as a bridge between incredible community generosity and the bold educational goals of Aspen Peaks. I would like to move that we initiate the process of creating an Aspen Peaks School District 501c3 nonprofit foundation. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion from Board Member Knight and a second from Board Member Burrows to initiate the process of creating the Aspen Peak School District 501c3 nonprofit foundation. This item is now open for discussion.
creating, or is it like a committee? Is that how we're, or who's initiating that, or who's looking at that? How do we do that exactly?
That is the question.
I shouldn't have asked that. Maybe
No,
No,
I think there's, I think we've got to put together a committee and do some preliminary work to find out how to set it
How
up.
to
But
do
sometimes
it,
it can take a
okay.
really long time to get your 501c3. And so we thought we need to get that instigated, even if we can't do a lot with it right away, so that we can start moving forward. But there's still also negotiation that needs to be done with the other two districts about how we're splitting the Alpine Foundation, and I think there's a lot to start happening there, so.
So I think this specific motion is for us just to open the Aspen Peaks nonprofit 501c3. And the way you do that, it's a big application process that you have to start and fill out, and it can take months for that to happen. But once all of you have signed and that is in place, you can start accepting donations and functioning in good faith there. And we just wanted to get this set up in time as soon as we could so that generous members of our community could start donating to our district. So any other discussion on that?
I just wanted to comment how great the Alpine Foundation has been, all the wonderful things that they have done. And so I really do appreciate that we are moving forward with this as well. Just this last couple of weeks, my children were able to go do Sub for Santa through the foundation, and they were able, I chose a family with four kids because I have 4 kids, and I was able to give a list to each of my kids, and that was such a special time to share with them. But they do many great things, so I fully support creating this foundation.
I just want to echo that, and I think that in our last meeting, Jason Sundberg talked about the Alpine Foundation and how our district specifically has had so many donations from those in our community because there's so much support for such philanthropy. And so I'm excited to get this up and running. I also want to highlight the state of Utah recently changed their Department of Commerce, and it's actually super quick to create a 501c3. And so it really just takes a bank account. It'll probably take more time to do the bank account, but then it's just some forms online. So it's not terribly hard. I'm happy to help if you need. I've done a few in the last couple of years, so I'm just going to throw that out there. But I'm excited for this. I think that our community will support our district in a big way, and it also enables us to go out to businesses and offer that as a tax-deductible donation for them. So there's just so many things that we can do with this.
Thank you, and we wanted to get it off the ground as soon as possible. Is there any further discussion?
I'd like to share something. I just want to publicly express my support for this because I know the benefit and the good that these foundations do. Being an educator, having benefited from these, I want to make sure that as we start a district, that we let all the educators have that opportunity to benefit from it. And of course, to that I say educators, I also mean to our students because they're the ultimate goal and endpoint of this.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing no further discussion, we will vote. All in favor of initiating the process of creating the Aspen Peak School District 501c3 nonprofit foundation, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. The voting has been unanimous. The next item is the appointment of a board representative and chair for this Aspen Peak School District 501c3 nonprofit foundation. I would like to make a motion for Amber Bonner to be the board representative and chair for the Aspen Peak School District 501c3 nonprofit foundation. Do we have a second?
I second that.
We have a motion from Board Member Knight and a second from Board Member Burrows to appoint Amber Bonner as the board committee chair for the Aspen Peak School District 501c3 nonprofit foundation. Is there any discussion?
Thank you, Amber.
I'd just like to say that Amber's presence and personality make her a great ambassador to reach out to local businesses and organizations, and I'm excited for that.
Thank you.
They
That's
are
so
very
nice.
generous.
And I
around
was
here,
going to
so.
say, Nikki, I don't need to do this alone. So if you would like to assist, I don't see myself turning away any offers of assistance. So
Okay,
anyway.
so what I
I'll do
need
the
to
paperwork.
ask is, Amber Bonner, do you accept this motion?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, we will vote. All in favor of appointing Amber Bonner as the board representative and chair for the Aspen Peak School District 501c3 nonprofit foundation, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. The voting has been unanimous. We will now hear board member reports and informational items.
I have one. I can go first. I posted on my social media pages this end of last week that I'm sure to the public it looks like not much is happening yet, right? Because we got elected, we got sworn in, and now nothing really has been announced. But I want the public to know that we have been so busy, so busy. All of us, I think, in talking to people and figuring out how to set things up and learning what we still need to do, what we need to accomplish in reaching out to patrons, both parents and students and teachers and staff members. I feel like I've had a lot of conversations over the last couple of weeks. And one thing that I'm really grateful for is that I think all of us just want this to go well. We want it to go well for kids. We want it to go well for teachers. We want it to go well for staff. We want it to go well for everyone. We want this to be something good moving forward. And to that end, I really encourage people, if you have anything that you want to ask or communicate or that you're concerned about, there's a couple of different ways you can get a hold of all of us. If you go to the Alpine School District website, there's a link at the top that says districts, and if you click on that, you can click on Aspen Peaks District, and that will pull up our temporary web page that Alpine is thankfully running for us until, I have no webmaster skills, none, zip. So on that is all of the emails for all of our board members, but also we have a feedback button where you can leave written comments, and those are going to us also. Also, I think all of us have active social media pages if you want to reach out, but I think the best way to make sure everything goes well is to get as many viewpoints and perspectives as possible, because no matter how involved you have been in the past or what you've done, you don't have every perspective that's out there. And so I'm really appreciative of our community members who have reached out with their perspective and concerns and are just wanting everything to go well, and I'm really appreciative of that.
I'd just like to say that we were grateful to get the support from Richard Stoll at USBE. He provided us with some samples of previous brochures that districts had used for the superintendent search. I personally think the one that we cobbled together, using some of the best of all of those, was excellent. And if you go to usba.cc, you can apply for the superintendency if you'd like, or just go and see the brochure. It really was, from some of the artwork or some of the images that Alpine School District shared with us of amazing kids and adorable kids, some of the imagery from our community and how beautiful our landscape is and our cities are, to some of the graphics we were able to put in there that would be appealing to someone that is interested in being a superintendent. I think the brochure turned out great. And so it was kind of fun to get a few of us together and do that. I think it turned out excellent, and hopefully it will be good honey and attract some people to our district. And I look forward to helping with the BA brochure as well in the near future.
I would like to say a few things. I want to say a bunch of thank yous. Thank you to our community members who have reached out already. As Amber said, that we want to hear feedback. We want to hear information. We're just 7 people representing a whole bunch of people, and we love that feedback. I would like to say thank you to Alpine School District. You guys have, you work a lot, and we know that, and we're grateful for all that you've done to help us personally. And I would like to say thank you to my other board members. We really have done a lot of work. There have been lots of hours, and I hear you on that 5 a.m. wake-up call every morning, thinking about a million things. So thank you to all of you for all you've done, and I just wanted to finish with, I hope everyone has a great break. I know I will.
I just wanted to make a personal note and thank the employees of the Alpine School District. Sarah Beeson and I are good friends. She's on the Alpine School Board now, but we were on different sides of the district split. And we always said we would always be friends no matter what happened. No hard feelings forever. But when you talk to the Jordan Canyons people, they said that there were several years where it took them, and there are still some hard feelings. And so as we started moving forward with this transition, some people have asked, well, how's it going? And I just want to publicly acknowledge that those employees in the Alpine School District are doing amazing work. And they are basically serving 4 school districts right now, and they're giving high quality information to us, helping those of us that are brand new, that look to them with questions on just about everything. And I can't speak highly enough of all of the employees for the Alpine School District right now, and for the kindness and their professionalism as they're helping us transition to these new school districts. So thank you so much, and I hope everyone takes the time to thank them and acknowledge their great efforts.
I'll take a moment as well. It's going to sound a little bit like a broken record, but I think I can't go without saying thank you to the community as well for their feedback, and I, of course, hope that all of you feel open to share it more with us, even more, because we have the unique opportunity that we're able to build a district that's a very uncommon situation to be in, and so I think it's a great thing. So thank you to those who have reached out. I know with the superintendent search, I had a great amount of interest, and I hope that as we continue forward, we continue to have that interest, or even that it increases with what we're doing, that I believe we are going to have opportunities to involve the community even more. I think that's a key thing we want, is that community involvement, that transparency with it. And of course, I want to thank, again, the Alpine. I think we can't say it enough, because you guys really are doing 4 times the work of what would normally be, and so thank you for that.
I just want to echo some of these things, but as I was recalling, it seems in some ways that it's been forever since we were sworn in, but it was 16 days ago. And if we, with Thanksgiving break and Black Friday and that whole weekend in there as part of it, the joke at my house is that I am a night owl. I get a lot of stuff done at midnight. But over these past 16 days, I've also become an early bird, and most everyone on this board is an early bird as well. And I am in awe of the community that we serve. I'm in awe of what you do every day. I'm in awe of the people who help and serve and teach the students, because they are the reason we are here. They are the reason why we're doing what we do. And I also have to echo my deep admiration and respect for the Alpine School District team. They have welcomed us with open arms and taken every request, no matter how humongous it might be, or ginormous, as Buddy the Elf would say, and just have been willing to do whatever we need. And so I am so grateful to them, and I am grateful to this board and to all of you for being here and supporting us. Okay, as there is no further business, we do have a motion to enter Do we have a motion to enter a closed session to discuss personnel, property litigation, and/or collective bargaining?
I'll move to close this meeting and move into closed session for purposes of personnel, property litigation, or collective bargaining.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion by Board Member Bonner and a second by Board Member Hart to enter a closed session to discuss personnel, property litigation, and/or collective bargaining. This requires a roll call vote. Board Member Sparty?
Yes.
Board Member Brammer? Board Member Bonner?
Yes.
Board Member Hart?
Yes.
Board Member Burrows? Board Member Thieler?
Yes.
Board Member Knight? Yes. Okay. This has been unanimous, so we will now enter our closed session. Thank you for coming.